Check 1, 2. This is just going to be on the whole time.
Okay. So if I stand like this and talk, it will be okay. But if I look down, it'll be okay. Is it up and okay, and then down and back and forth, and then no?
You and I must be exactly the same height. It looks like you're at the right height.
So you hear me well, even if I turn my head over here and do something like that, or is it? I should try to stay like here.
It'll be okay if you don't. I would try to bias towards.
Okay. Okay. So we need to find out. Haley. So yeah, so you just if it's not obvious, Mark, Haley. Someone needs this one.
That's going to be this, unless each presenter is having, has someone at the back advancing their slides.
Oh no, yeah. Each presenter other than me probably needed.
Which is why I'm going to just leave that there. So
But do you have another one?
Oh, you need one to advance for you?
Someone, I thought she said that she was going to advance for me because I don't even know what the slides are.
We have a second clip.
You have a second click? Okay.
We're going to leave that one.
I'll leave that one there.
Advance in back there.
Sounds good. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, good to see you. Are you pitching out again today? Clickers up here. you translating? All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the very first innovation stage here at EcoImpact. Whether you're with us in person or whether you're live streaming, I think we have 300 people live streaming in from across the country. Welcome. I hope this event will actually meet your needs, and thank you for being part of EcoImpact 2026. This is an exciting new addition to our conference and a place where bold ideas turn into real-world action. Over the next couple of days, this stage will showcase some of Alberta and Canada's brightest minds and most forward-thinking organizations. And you'll see some new ideas, some breakthrough technologies, and powerful examples of excellence shaping the future of the environmental industry. And what makes this moment even more exciting is that these conversations are not just staying here. I'm very excited. This is also the first time we're live streaming a component of our event. And having a few hundred people on the line makes me very happy. And to those of you that are just coming in from lunch, hurry up, get your seats. That was a great lunch, by the way. So those of you that are online, maybe next year you'll be here in person. Every lightning talk and every demo that you will see here today represent more than just a great idea. It represents the commitment. These innovators aren't just waiting for change, they're building it. And by being here, whether in person or online, you're part of that momentum. So this is your invitation to lean in, ask questions, start conversations, and make connections. Whether you're an investor, a policymaker, a student, or a seasoned professional, this stage is your opportunity to learn, collaborate, and be inspired. We know that innovation does not happen in isolation, and it happens where everyone comes together, sharing knowledge, challenges, assumptions, and working towards solutions that truly make a difference. And that's exactly what this stage is all about. At EcoCanada, some of our partners here as well, we're trying to leverage federal government funding at the moment. There's more and more investment in innovation, and within our sector, we're trying to gather as many people as possible with as many great ideas, but we also need private money. So if there's any private money in the room that want to be able to work with us to try to leverage some of that government funding, make sure you seek me out and talk to me before the end of the day. Before we go any further, I would like to thank the Government of Alberta, our government partner, for making this event happen. Without the Government of Alberta, this would not be possible. And they've been a great supporter of ours for many years, building a strong workforce here in Alberta. I also want to thank Magnet, our partners, both at the innovation stage and the Tech Innovation Conference Center. And for those of you that don't know Magnet, they're a center of innovation housed at Toronto Metropolitan University, focused on the future work, where they're connecting talent, technology, and opportunity all across Canada. And before we kick things off any further, I'd like to show a brief little video on the screen here about the great work that Magnet's doing. Let's play the video.
The future of work and our environment can't be shaped in isolation. It's built through collaboration across industries, regions, and the people driving sustainability forward. At the EcoImpact Conference 2026, environmental leaders are coming together to accelerate innovation and explore how technology and skills can power a more sustainable future. As innovation stage partner, Magnet is helping to connect emerging technologies, expertise, and real-world solutions shaping Canada's next chapter. Learn more about Magnet here.
Well, now it's my pleasure to invite someone who's helping to shape the future work in this country, my good friend Mark Patterson, who's the Executive Director of Magnet. Come on up on stage, Mark. Take it away.
Thanks, Dave. It's great to be here, everybody. When Kevin actually asked me to open this session, I was very excited. I've been in the innovation space for a while. In my career, I've worked in a number of incubators, helped set up the Digital Media Zone at Toronto Metropolitan University, and I've always been very excited to work with startups and see startup ideas and new innovations. But when I was reflecting on what I want to say today, I think there's something that is really important. Canada actually is very good at innovation. We invest in research, we build technology, and we really generate world-class ideas, I would say, and punch above our weight. But here's a challenge. We all know that innovation without adoption is just potential, right? And potential doesn't raise productivity. It doesn't help employers adapt. It doesn't prepare people for the work that is actually changing. Adoption is where innovation becomes real. It's where technology meets people, workflows, and decisions. So we spend a lot of time at Magnet thinking about adoption. We're talking to leaders across the country a lot right now about AI. And we've talked for a while about the importance, for example, of AI literacy. But we all know digital transformation requires much more. It's people, process, technology, and data. And on the people side, we think there's something that's really important. So yes, learning, for example, AI literacy or other skills is important, but we really fundamentally believe we have to build a more adaptive, we've heard all of these words today, adaptive, resilient workforce. So we need a growth mindset, we need more entrepreneurial mindset, we need to be able to sense how the world is changing around us, to realign our skills, acquire new skills, to execute, we've heard that word a number of times today, and do that in an environment that builds trust and grows our businesses and grows our society and economy. So something that's even more important I want you all to think about is individually, organizationally, and as a society, how do we build a more adaptive human potential? And if we do that, then I believe we'll be able to take advantage of the amazing innovation you'll see today. And I think just one more kind of shout out to all of the organizations presenting today. If you're in a position to adopt, test, pilot, or work with any of these groups, do it, right? That's a key message for today. Let's invest in the innovation that's happening in our sectors, in Canada, and we have a very bright future. I'm very excited about all of the entrepreneurs I see across the country. Entrepreneurship is very alive and thriving in Canada. We just need to make sure that we're doing the adoption, and I think we could do a better job of the adoption side. So thank you very much, and looking forward to the presentations.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you to Kevin and Mark for kicking us off. My name is Haley Deshane. I am the events coordinator here at EcoCanada, and I'll be your MC for the next 2 days at the innovation stage. So yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm excited to be guiding you through this awesome new addition to EcoImpact. Over the last couple of months, we put out a call across Alberta and the rest of Canada for innovative ideas and projects, from which we received over 130 submissions from companies, researchers, students, startups, and environmental professionals doing remarkable work. From that pool, we've selected a lineup that represents some of the most promising technologies and research shaping the future of the environmental work in Alberta. Over the next 2 days, you're going to see everything from real-time environmental data tools and AI-driven compliance solutions to circular economy innovations, community-based climate programs, low-carbon materials, clean tech breakthroughs, and cutting-edge research that's reshaping how we work, build, and protect our environment. So here's how the innovation stage will work. Each session is short, punchy, and designed to give you a clear window into the innovation, with lightning pitches, short presentations, and a few demos. We'll be keeping things moving pretty quickly so that you can see as much creativity and talent as possible. And because of that, there won't be a Q&A period, but that doesn't mean the conversation should end there. We built multiple opportunities throughout the conference for you to dive deeper, ask questions, and connect directly with our presenters. You'll be able to meet them during the breaks, visit them in the networking lounge, and some of them have booths, so check them out there too in the exhibition hall. Think of these next 2 days as your chance to explore, learn something new, and discover a future collaborator. Get inspired and even spark an idea of your own. Most importantly, don't be afraid to be shy. Introduce yourself to our speakers, start the conversations, and follow up on the ideas that caught your attention. The people on the stage are here because they want to share their work with you. So I encourage you to connect with them throughout the conference and keep the conversations moving. Also for speakers, if you'd like to continue the conversation yourself, we have Spiro Studio here. They have an interview room and they can film videos of you discussing your innovation, and we'll forward them to you later. So if you're interested in that, you can find Vanessa here in the red pants, and she will direct you there to get that done. Thanks again for joining us, both in person and to those of you online. And thank you to all of our innovators who are about to take the stage. So with that, let's get started. To kick off the innovation stage, we will be hearing a few presentations focusing on water, watershed, and climate resilience innovation. Our first presenter brings a level of experience and innovation that is pretty hard to top. BJ Min is the founder and CEO of TRIUM Environmental and the president and CEO of its AI-focused subsidiary, ecoAI Innovates. He has more than 30 years of experience as an environmental engineer, and over the past 7 years, he's been leading cutting-edge work at the intersection of AI, engineering, and environmental sustainability. Today, he's here to celebrate over 20 years of innovation in environmental technologies and introduce the role of physical AI in advancing sustainability. He will speak to how integrating AI with hardware can improve soil sensing, automate water treatment, boost efficiency, enable energy reduction, and facilitate smarter environmental solutions, shaping a more sustainable future through technology and collaboration. This is the kind of session that reminds us how quickly the landscape is evolving and how much possibility lies ahead when engineering and AI come together. So please join me in welcoming BJ Min, presenting 20 years of innovations, the rise of physical AI for the environment.
Thank you. Before I start my talk, I'd like to mention that TRIUM Environmental has been 20 years since incorporation in 2006. So I'd like to share our humble story of innovations, development, and commercialization of the new technologies. Also, I'd like to share some lucky story, how come we didn't go belly up, right? So TRIUM journey began in 2006 as a typical environmental engineering consulting firm. So there are a couple of the founders who are actually from consulting industry. So when we started, we developed a business plan. How we want to change the world, how we want to define the consulting business, how we want to advance our remediation industries. Well, we had 3 options. Number 1, building revenue-generating business, and then 2 things. Or secondly, we borrow the money from bank. Thirdly, we attract investors from externally. Well, we chose number 1 because actually we were very seasoned consulting engineers and scientists. So based on our expertise, we thought that we were able to bring the revenue so that then we can actually use the money to develop new technologies, which are possible very luckily. So 2007, we actually we started having our own R&D team and also working with different supporting agencies and universities. And 2018, that was kind of a critical moment for us. We actually came across the idea about AI adoption to our environmental technologies. And since then, we've been thriving to adopt this AI into physical AI, which is AI-embedded hardware. So number 1, I'd like to talk about the ASIST product. If anyone is in the environmental site assessment or remediation industry, you may know this word, contaminated soil screening, which means when you investigate contaminated site, you're gonna have to screen soil so that you can those selected soils to the laboratory for chemical analysis. However, it takes a lot of time and money Also, there are a lot of actual uncertainty in terms of the screening method, because currently, only available technology is the volatile, the PID, which means actually detect the volatiles from soil. But the non-volatile or semi-volatile is really hard to guess. And also in remediation site, there are a lot of actually over-excavation happening right now, mainly because of the poor prediction of the soil screening, because nobody wants to come back again and do it and then continue to dig up again. So we actually came up with the idea that there's a couple of the sensors, and if we use a sensor fusions, and then also the developing AI database with a user interface, we thought that we could achieve this goal, and which we made happen. So basically, we developed the 3 sensors. ACE is petrol, that is for petroleum hydrocarbon from F1 to F4, and also ACE is aurora, which is to detect and predict volatiles, VOCs. And then ACE is the SAL is detect salinity contamination in soil. So main actually target to achieve this innovation was building the AI database, because sensor signal is not really correlated directly to analytical result. So there are lots of uncertainties. So we're gonna have to train using machine learning technology, also reinforcement, and there's so many technology and techniques that you're gonna have to use. And then next is actually our second product, AI-powered autonomous water and wastewater treatment system. So in water and wastewater industry, one of the challenges is energy efficiency, also adaptability of the seasonal changes, especially nowadays the climate changes. The main actually the breakout, the point is turbidity in water, because climate change is global warming. Sometimes actually input water is not as we expected when we designed the system. So there's a lot of the challenges and difficulties. So with our partners, we developed this NIADA system for the water and wastewater treatment system, which is modular side, a small and medium-sized unit. And it is actually an AI database embedded into it. So basically, I can see on the screen, some of the systems are very similar to just conventional technologies. However, each component, each vessel has a sensor, and the sensor sends signal to the SCADA system, which is typical software-based control system. Now that actually signal also sent to AI computer, which you can see the on the wall of the the cover. And also it reads and it autonomously operates and controls the operations. So then it sends it back to SCADA system via the gateway system. So that actually this system can be autonomously operated, but also optimize energy consumption, chemicals consumption, stuff like that. That actually particular site is actually located in Calgary. So if you wonder, actually, I can arrange you guys a site visit. Actually, it's a part of the our project with the University of Calgary, advancing water, Canadian water asset, aqua facility. So now it's being operated right now to treat municipal wastewater. So what's next? So as part of our innovation, so we are working on the vertical AI. The vertical AI means, continue to integrate workflow using AI, okay? So which means a domain-specific model with a structured environmental knowledge and operational workflows. One of the things that we actually learned in a hard way when we developed the AI was, you can hire the AI expert, all the software engineers, code engineers. The problem is, if they don't understand your domain, business domain, it's almost impossible to achieve your goal. That was actually one of the hard lessons that we learned. And then lastly, I'd like to make a final pitch. As part of our growth and expansion, we are still looking for a young talent, even old talent, that's good. So someone has a really good experience who wants to join us and then continue to develop this physical AI world. and so that we can actually achieve more sustainable world. I think that's my talk, and thank you very much again.
Thank you so much, BJ. That was an incredible look into the past, present, and future of physical AI. If you'd like to keep the conversation moving with him, please seek him out at the rest of the conference in the networking lounge, or if you just see him around, he'd be more than happy to dive deeper into the technology and possibilities it opens up. Our next speaker is Ryan Black, the founder of Pure Water Engineering, a firm dedicated to restoring lake health with practical engineering solutions. Ryan is an environmental engineer who works directly with municipalities and stewardship groups to design oxygenation systems that tackle harmful algae blooms and improve long-term water quality. Today, he's here to outline an engineering-based approach to lake restoration that focuses on restoring oxygen and understanding how oxygen dynamics, sediment chemistry, and internal nutrient cycling interact with each lake system. Drawing on his work at Swan Lake, Elk Lake, and Quamachigan Lake, Ryan will show how dissolved energy profiling and sediment assessments are helping local communities make informed, site-specific restoration decisions. Please join me in welcoming Ryan Black.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan. I'm principal engineer at Pure Water Engineering, and today I'm going to talk to you about oxygenating lakes. So eutrophication is a problem right across our country in many of our lakes. This probably many of you have seen at lakes that you love. It's kind of a drag. So the problem is we have an overabundance of nutrients. This is usually caused by land application of fertilizers. They run off and make their way down gradient into our lake systems. When those nutrients arrive in our lake, we get an overabundance of algae growth. That algae then settles to the bottom of the lake, it dies, bacteria consume it and the dissolved oxygen in the lake, making anoxic conditions and really setting the stage for the harmful algae blooms or the cyanobacteria to take over. And so we try to reverse that a little bit by adding oxygen. We add oxygen in a couple different ways. If the lake is deep enough, we can add the oxygen directly. We can do what we call a line diffuser. It's a lot like a porous hose that you might see in a garden. Little nano bubbles of oxygen will come up out of that hose. And because there's enough hydrostatic pressure in a deep lake, it'll totally dissolve into the hypolimnion of the lake, right where we want the oxygen. Now, this is a bit different from aeration systems or bubblers that you may have seen before. This is pure oxygen that we're giving to the lake. And in a lot of lakes, they have weakly stratified layers, and we want to prevent mixing. And so if a lake is too shallow, we would deploy one of our oxygen saturation chambers, the picture at the top there. And what that does is it pumps in water from the hypolimnion into our chamber and delivers oxygen from shore and mixes it in an artificially high pressure environment to then re-release the supersaturated water back over the sediments of the bottom of the lake. Now, with either of these approaches, in a shallow lake or a deep lake, the onshore part looks much the same. You'll see there's an air supply that goes into an air equalization tank. Then it goes into our air separator where the oxygen is created, and then into the oxygen equalization tank. And from there, depending on which system we use, out to the lake. And so why do we do this? In the presence of oxygen, phosphorus will bind to certain metals. It'll bind to aluminum and it'll bind to iron. And so when that happens, in these oxidizing aerobic conditions, it's no longer bioavailable. We've taken it away from the algae, and it settles at the bottom of the lake into the sediment layer. As more sedimentation occurs, as we continue to sequester more phosphorus, it remineralizes down into the sediments and is pulled away from the internal phosphorus cycling. The opposite happens if you have no oxygen. Without oxygen in anaerobic conditions, those phosphorus metal bonds will release, and the phosphorus is put back into the water column. And so lakes will turn over in the fall. They get oxygen at the bottom of the lake. They get some phosphorus sequestration, but then by late spring in the summer, it's all re-released back from the anaerobic bottom, and we get these harmful algae blooms occurring. So we've had some great early results from this technology. As many of you probably know, trout are quite picky. They like cold water, they like lots of dissolved oxygen. And so in a trout pond, we put in one of these saturation chambers so that we wouldn't cycle the lake to keep the bottom waters cold. And we were able to achieve DO levels over 12 milligrams per liter and a phosphorus reduction of 86%. A similar story at another pond, Sarah's Pond. They were having really high biomass levels in this pond and really struggling with cyanobacteria. In 2020, an oxygen saturation chamber was put in, and as you can see, there was a sharp decline in biomass. And after just a couple years, there was almost no more cyanobacteria growth in Sarah's Pond. Similar story in a stormwater retention pond. Dissolved oxygen was maintained at over 10 milligrams per liter, and we had over 75% phosphorus reduction there. At Elk Lake in Victoria, this was the first lake that received an oxygenation system in Canada. It was trending, year over year higher phosphorus levels. So the little red dot on the chart is every September. So every September, year over year, phosphorus was increasing in the lake. We had a bit of a data gap in the monitoring program, but we installed the oxygenation system at the end of 2023. And in 2024, September of 2024, there was over an 80% reduction in phosphorus in Elk Lake. And just this summer, Elk Lake was the only lake in our region that had blue-green algae advisory lifted. We have a couple more projects around Victoria that we're excited to get results for. One that we installed this winter was at Swan Lake. And so here we are bringing in one of our oxygen saturation chambers out into the lake. It's up and running, it's installed, and we're going to be collecting data this spring and this summer, and so we have high hopes for this one. Another lake that we're starting a pilot program in March, so next month, is Quamachin Lake. So Quamachin Lake's a little bit different in that it was deficient in both iron and aluminum, and so we knew that we could give it all the oxygen we wanted, but phosphorus will never have anything to bind to. So we just received approval from the DFO and from the Ministry of Environment to dose the lake with a little bit of aluminum and a little bit of iron alongside our oxygenation system to show that we can keep it below water quality guidelines and give phosphorus something to bind to so that we can reduce phosphorus in the lake. And so really across all of the lakes that we've deployed these in, we've seen reduced harmful algae blooms. The sediment layer has compacted over time. We've had reduced phosphorus, improved clarity, and maintained high DO levels. So we're really excited about the future of this, and thanks everybody for listening to me, and if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to find me out in the conference.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Like he said, if you have any questions or want to continue chatting with him, find him around in the networking lounge or just around the halls. Staying on our theme with lake health and what's happening beneath the surface, our next speaker brings a practical approach to tackling one of our biggest water quality challenges, excess phosphorus. Joel Weber is the founder and CEO of Lakewater Nutrient Capture. Originally from Winnipeg, he brings experience in conventional farming, vertical farming, and consulting engineering, giving him a rare mix of technical insights and real-world practicality. He's a strong believer in the keep it simple principle, breaking complex problems down into clear, manageable solutions. That philosophy shaped the development of Lakewater nutrient capture and its approach to phosphorus removal. Today, Joel will share the entrepreneurial journey behind the company, from a simple concept to securing its first customers, and introduce the service they've built to help communities quickly and directly remove excess phosphorus from their lakes and rivers. Their solution uses nano-iron oxyhydroxide filled filters. How did I do with that? Okay, thank you. A simple, elegant system that works much like an air filter in your home, just scaled up for an entire watershed. Please join in welcoming Joel Weber to the innovation stage to present physically removing excess phosphorus from our lakes and rivers.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for preceding me. You highlighted a lot of the issues that our watersheds are facing with algae blooms. And one of the big things that people hear about is, all these beach advisories and phosphorus, and they really don't understand what's driving it. And there was a study done by ISD a couple years ago where they took actually a lake and they divided it in half. And they dosed half of it with nitrogen and half with phosphorus. The half with nitrogen didn't do anything. The other half with phosphorus just totally greened over with algae. And that means that phosphorus is the primary driver of all these harmful algae blooms. That's oversimplifying it, but the primary driver. Now, why? So one of the things that we identified was there's a big gap that we're looking at here. Our lakes need a big solution. They need something now, while the communities, infrastructures, cities, they need to do upgrades. That all takes time. So, sorry, I'm a little bit mixed up with my notes here. Anyways, I'll give you a little bit of background about who I am. My name is Joel Weber. I am the CEO of Lakewater Nutrient Capture. My background is conventional farming as well as consulting engineering. Now, over the years, I'm a big proponent of keep it simple, stupid kind of engineering solutions, and that's the simplest solution is the most elegant solution. Now, I've been out of the engineering game for a number of years, but I was still doing feasibility studies on the side while I was doing my vertical farm and conventional farming. Part of that, somebody asked me to look at the feasibility of bringing some industry to Manitoba. Through that, I came across some materials that were very remarkable, that were lab tested, had some field testing, but weren't really commercialized yet. And essentially what they are is a sponge. So the nano-iron oxyhydroxide, basically what it does is any phosphate molecules that are in proximity to it that it comes into contact with will bind to the surface of this material. That's super important because we're able to take that, scale it, and apply it in a big way. Now, there are a lot of solutions for smaller lakes, but as soon as you get to above 1,000 acres, a lot of them fall apart. They're not really feasible. It's difficult to implement in a meaningful way. That's where we changed the paradigm. From the outset, we have designed a solution that is primarily for larger lakes. Basically what it is we take this material and we hang it below booms on either side of a motorized barge, and we just drag it through the water until the material, which is a sponge essentially, becomes saturated. We know how long it takes for it to reach saturation because we know what the phosphorus concentration is in the water. We know the speed at which we're going. There's a lot of things that we can control, at which point, within a few hours, those sponges are full, we can extract it from the water, physically remove it from the water, unlike many other technologies. Take it, and we can actually extract the phosphorus out of the material and create a usable byproduct called tricalcium phosphate, and then take the filtration material and put it back into the lake and filter more phosphorus out. So what we do and what we provide is a service that provides these communities that have aging infrastructure through wastewater treatment plants or overland drainage, and provide them an opportunity to capture this phosphorus that they're discharging into the water while they're implementing their changes. However, that can take 5, 10, 30 years. We provide that interim stop where they can have something that is in place right away that's not infrastructure heavy and remove that from the water. It creates a circular economy, it's sustainable filters, it provides a lot of positive aspects. So how it all came about also was, when I was doing the research for the feasibility study, was that when I was doing the research for the feasibility study, there was all this talk about Lake Winnipeg. Lake Winnipeg, if anybody is familiar with it, it is like Lake Erie. It's similar capacity in terms of the volume of phosphorus that's coming into it, the scale of the project. It's a very overwhelming and daunting project. And so initially, I looked at this material and I was like, you know what? I could really utilize this for the application of Lake Winnipeg. There's really no good solutions for it. We presented it. The government was like, great, let's see you implement it in some small lakes. So that's what we did. We pivoted and we started looking to small lakes around. We started working with some local RMs with some lakes that they had. And last fall, we received funding for MVP through Manitoba Innovates as well as through the North Forge program. And we built our little barge that we took out to a pond, essentially, and we went back and forth just capturing phosphorus. And that was our MVP, which was very straightforward and simple. As you can see on the picture there, that's actually us in November of this past fall in the arm of East St. Paul capturing phosphorus. So that was a major step for us. And from that picture, it kind of just shows how simple it is. You just go back and forth, capturing that phosphorus. We then literally physically lift it out of the water. Nobody else is able to do that. Like, part of our plan is to attend conferences and trade shows this upcoming year, but also do on-site customer demonstrations where we can literally go to any kind of lake down in the States or across Canada, show up in the morning with our mobile processing trailer and barge, put it into the water, motor around for a couple hours, and capture, with that little barge, we can do 6 pounds of phosphorus within 2 hours. Extract it, remove the filters out of the water. Within 4 hours, we can extract it from the material, and then at the end of the day, hand a vial of phosphorus to our customer and say, this came from your lake. Nobody else is able to do that. Nobody else is able to provide that usable byproduct. There are ways to oxygenate the water, which there's definitely a place for that. And there are other solutions such as chemical treatments, algicides, a whole range of other things. But the primary difference is we're creating a usable byproduct, something that is not lost. So, for example, phosphorus is listed as a critical mineral that Canada and the United States has as part of growing agriculture. It's quintessential to our medical industry, to agriculture and food. People don't realize that we import over 60% of phosphorus. What we're providing is the ability for to provide these communities not only a way to clean up their lakes of excess phosphorus, but also a way to mine our water essentially of this phosphorus and create a usable byproduct that can then feed into the local economy. That is just unprecedented. Now for 2026, like I said, we're also looking for active investment. We've been chatting with VCs and angels, and we're really looking forward to some pretty big things that we have lined up. We're looking at doing projects across Canada, hopefully into the United States, and yeah, I'm really, really excited. Because you preceded me, you were able to go over a lot of the downfalls or the issues with LJ. But yeah, no, that was pretty much my conversation. I just wanted to give you guys just from our starting point of conception where it was, I see this material that is underutilized that can be commercialized. and brought into a big way and scaled to fill a gap. That was our journey. And that's only been 2 years since we were from inception. We were founded in February of 2024, which is crazy to think that in that period of time, we have, gone through and done our customer talks, identifying the pain points, doing the gap analysis of, will this actually work, to even filing patents. We have a patent for doing offshore where, simply we take a shipping container, we sink it, the natural water flow goes through the material, and we're able to capture that. Super, super simple approach to a very complex problem. That's what we bring to the table. Thank you so very much, you guys, for having me. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Joel. That was awesome. Here's some more pictures of his project. Yeah, so if you want to continue the conversation with him, find him in the hallways, find him in the networking lounge, and ask him your questions. But on to our next speaker. She brings more than 25 years of experience, I just fact-checked because I didn't believe it, in environment and sustainability, and a career that spans everything from land reclamation and air quality work to global biodiversity assessments and leading Alberta's first natural asset inventory. Sherry Young brings a broad systems-level perspective on climate mitigation adaptation and nature-based solutions to ICLEI Canada. Today she's here to introduce ClimateInsight.ca, launched in October 2024 and already becoming a go-to platform for communities looking to build low-carbon, climate-resilient housing and infrastructure. Sherry will walk us through its site of free online tools that help communities set priorities, explore relevant solutions, and understand local impacts. You'll see a rapid risk assessment tool and a first-of-its-kind interactive map layering socioeconomic data, climate data, and key infrastructure to reveal community vulnerabilities. Please join me in welcoming Sherry Young to present From Insights to Action, Resources for Communities Building Climate-Ready Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Haley, and you have fantastic taste, I'm just saying, in outfits today. In case you're mixing us up, my shirt is untucked. So I just need a minute, because of course I brought a Mac, so we might have some issues with compatibility. But thank you for that. Yes, 25 years. So I'm flattered. You can't see the gray, can you? Well, I get this all connected and my computer doesn't freeze up here. Yeah, my name is Sherry Young. I am an Albertan, born and bred. And I have spent the last 25 years working in sustainability, climate action. Can we see it? Hold on, it's flicking back and forth. That's not what you want. Come on. Do you see the? Okay, give me a sec. I could just talk about it, but I'd really like to show you what we're working on because it's kind of, it's up now? Okay, I just want to do a mirror approach. So let me just start with, well, I try to pretend that I actually work for an online platform, and so I do know how computers work. Yeah, see, now you're seeing that, and that's not what we need. Okay, give me a sec. So I work for ICLEI Canada, who is an organization that supports municipalities and local governments in implementing climate change and sustainability principles in their organizations. So ICLEI's been around for a very long time. I've been at ICLEI for 2 years, and what brought me to ICLEI was ICLEI brought me over to direct this project, which is called Climate Insight, and it's specifically a platform funded by the government of Canada that is a decision-making support tool to basically put a climate specialist into communities where maybe the capacity was limited, maybe funding was limited, maybe there's super fast turnovers and deadlines and there is no ability to increase your capacity. Hi. Sure, I just need to, my computer's being a jerk right now,
Keep
actually.
talking, I'll help you out.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So I just need to be on the other window because all of my tabs are open on the other window. Okay. Let me just go back. Where was I? Thank goodness for tech support. So Climate Insight was developed in order to provide climate specialists in each municipality, small to mid-sized communities who maybe don't have funding to have a climate specialist in-house, or maybe they don't have the capacity to look at, and so you have somebody like the recreation supervisor or the planner who's doing it off the side of their desk, right? They're like, oh, now how do I incorporate climate considerations into my infrastructure project? Because I really need to reduce my energy in my recreation facility, or I really need to make sure that our community buildings are resilient to climate change because they host a number of equity-deserving groups or equity groups that really will go without, it will really impact their way of life if that service goes away or is impacted by the hazards of climate change. All right. Okay, perfect. Now I just got to do mirroring, right? Okay. It's not, okay. It's not because it's the other. Okay, there we go. Yay! Thank you. Okay, so I've skipped over, I told you a little about me and what this project is for. What I'm going to do is, now I'm going to show you what the project is. So I'll just skip over all of the little stuff and show you that ClimateInsight.ca, it's available in both languages. It was incentivized by the Housing and Infrastructures and Communities Canada, who saw that for those of us applying for projects under 10 million, over 10 million needed a third-party climate lens assessment to apply for funding, but communities for projects under 10 million, they didn't really have a format, and communities were at all different levels of capacity to try to incorporate climate considerations into their projects. So in October 2024, we launched our MVP. It provided three kind of core parts of it. One was the solutions finder, which I'll show you in a minute. But the first one is our map. So Haley mentioned earlier, this is kind of the core, first of its kind map that we haven't seen one of its kind. Basically what you could do is enter in your postal code or your community, and it'll pull up data on social vulnerability indices, infrastructure, if your community has submitted it to StatsCan, and we have and is included in the open database of infrastructure. It includes ClimateData.ca climate parameters, and you can layer these on top of each other to see what kind of impacts, so both climate, socioeconomic factors, and maybe what infrastructure is in the areas where risk or vulnerability is already quite high in those areas. So that gives you a snapshot of maybe where to focus on improving your infrastructure. So if I pulled up Okotoks, because that's where I was the very first climate specialist in that town a number of years ago, not 25, but, so I'm a little bit more familiar with that area, but you can pull it up for your community, no matter whether you have 2,000 people or 75,000 people, and it'll pull up special layers for you to get a snapshot of the vulnerability in your area and the infrastructure that's impacted. So I encourage you to go and do that. That's the map. I'm going really fast because 10 minutes, and there's no way you'll see the whole thing. The other tool that we're really excited about that we launched in our release 3, so we have new functionality being released every 6 months. The great thing about this project is it keeps us active. We have funding for a 5-year project, so we have funding until October 2028, which means every 6 months we are launching a new release with new functionality, and every month we update the content with new case studies, new options for your infrastructure, new relevant codes and standards that are released, and new, there's one more, tools that we find that might be able to support you. But we also build our own tools that are incorporated, and this rapid risk assessment is basically, it's called rapid. It does not take you 5 minutes, but it does take you, if anybody's done a PIVC assessment or any of the vulnerability assessments out there, it takes you a matter of hours and just information you could talk to people in your organization about. rather than 6 to 12 months and a third-party consultant and $100,000. This you can do for free in a few hours with input from your colleagues. Or if you're in a very small community, you probably have all the input yourself, which happened when we were giving a skills lab for a community in Atlantic Canada last week. The one guy knew all the things. So in this rapid risk profile, you go through, it's a tool, it kind of shows you, it pulls up likelihood data, which is modeled based on some really cool number crunching that I don't really understand, but you can find out all about it in our data methodology section. But what it does, it evaluates the likelihood that each of these climate hazards will have on your region, and then it asks you to fact check that based on your local knowledge. So this one, I pulled up Okotoks. It says that I am exposed to extreme heat, flooding, and wildfire, but no permafrost in Okotoks. Facts, it's south. If you know anything about southern Alberta, we don't have a lot of permafrost. And then what it will do on the next screen is it takes you through this risk assessment. So it imports likelihood values for extreme heat, flooding, and wildfire. And it says, hey, check this against your local knowledge. So I can either overrule that, which I did for flooding, because we've had some flooding events in Okotoks, or I can say, yep, no, that's about right, extreme heat. And then it asks you to evaluate the consequences of that on your community in these sections, which you might see are some of the groupings are similar to PIVC or BARC style risk assessments. And that gives you an overall consequence score for each of the impacts, which gives you an overall risk score at the end because it combines it with the likelihood, which is risk equals likelihood times consequence. And then you have a summary that if you go through, which I'm not going to do right now, but I did it ahead of time, so we didn't have to sit here and watch me click things. And it gives you a summary of the risk by hazard that you can then print off and attach to your business case, your grant application, things like that. It aligns with some of those expectations, and that's the intent from Housing Infrastructure Canada. So if somebody's asking you for climate lens, here's your first step. The hazard profile, which is the one which you can pop out and look at separately, gives you just a snapshot. So you saw a first snapshot from the map, but you can have a more in-depth snapshot from the hazard profile that shows you all the different likelihoods of the different hazards as assigned by our modeling data. And then and our next release, which is coming out in April, we'll have some, you'll go through this and you'll have some additional recommendations for infrastructure options you can apply after that, which we're very excited about. And this hazard profile will have more information. It'll include the socioeconomic data. It'll include those kind of things. Once you're done that and you have an idea of your risks, you can use our solutions finder, which is here. It's a series of questions that I'm not going to go through right now, but you can do it on your own time with your own project. You can do it for adaptation or mitigation projects, and it gives you a customized, curated, and ranked list of infrastructure options that might be applicable to your project. If you click on any of these, it gives you a summary of what that option is to either increase your adaptation or reduce your emissions. It incorporates equity considerations, co-benefits, things like that. So you can save this to your account or print this off and attach it and say, when you go talk to your engineers or when you go to talk to your planners, say, these are the options we need to do for this new project. There's lots of nature-based solutions in here. There's lots of gray infrastructure. We wanted to make sure we could present both of them side by side, both types of project. And then when you're in one of those options, you can also look at case studies that are associated with if somebody else has implemented that option. So that's here. We also have mitigation options. So there's a baseline emissions calculator we've built right into the system that you can use to estimate both the emissions from your project or the emissions from a future project using either your actual numbers or estimated numbers or an archetype based on the flow through. There's some learn sections where you can learn if you don't really know what a nature-based solution is or how to implement it. We've got some stuff on there. If you don't know what the impacts are, you say, okay, yes, I know that flooding will impact my community, but what does it actually do to a building? What does it actually do to a road? We have summaries of that on a high level to let you know some of those things, both direct and indirect. And if you really want a shortcut, you could just go to the library and look for everything. So there's some codes and standards. We're part of a 3-part toolkit from Housing Infrastructure Canada. They have a climate help desk. You can call and ask them about anything. Or if you're from a community that's less than 30,000 people, you can call the Climate Resilient Infrastructure Service, and they will help you too. But if you need a place to start on integrating climate adaptation into your municipal projects, start here. That's it.
Thank you so much, Sherry, for that demonstration and for dealing with those technical difficulties. It was a great presentation. And thank you everyone for your patience while we figured that out. If you'd like to explore the tools further or talk about how they can support your community, be sure to connect with Sherry during the break or in the networking lounge. We will now be moving into our second theme of the day. Up next, we'll hear a series of presentations focused on building low carbon systems, infrastructure, materials, and community impact. Our first speaker in this category is Brett Stewart, a senior project manager at SHARC Energy with over a decade of experience in the sustainable energy sector. Brett has led the full life cycle of wastewater energy transfer projects and now uses his expertise to support SHARC's sales and business development initiatives. In his presentation, Brett will explore how wastewater energy transfer technology is transforming one of our most overlooked resources, wastewater, into a powerful tool for low-carbon energy systems. He'll highlight how innovation is making wastewater heat recovery scalable, reliable, and economically viable, even in regions with extreme temperatures like Alberta, as we've seen this week. It's my pleasure to welcome Brett Stewart to present Harvesting Thermal Energy from Wastewater, from Buildings to District Networks.
Good afternoon. So usually when we think of wastewater, we view it as a negative commodity, something we simply need to get rid of, something that holds zero value. At SHARC, we like to challenge that perspective. The US Department of Energy estimates that over 350 million megawatt hours of thermal energy are discarded down the drain annually in the US alone. To put that in perspective, that is energy we've already paid for, typically generated by natural gas boilers that we only use once before throwing it away. So where does this energy come from? If you think about the water cycle of a building, water enters at around 7 degrees Celsius. That's the cold water entering temperature. By the time that same water leaves the building as wastewater, it averages about 20 degrees Celsius. So thermal energy has been added to the building through every typical daily use. That includes dishwashers, washing machines, my dog Buck's least favorite, taking a bath. Although to his credit, he does like it a little bit more when the water's warm. So that 13-degree difference represents a massive thermal resource. It's energy that has been added to the water, making it significantly more valuable than when it arrived. Our goal at SHARC is to capture that energy, reuse it, and offset typical baseline resources like natural gas. So the primary barrier to harvesting wastewater heat is the presence of solids. Our innovation lies in the design of heat recovery systems, specifically designed to either manage the solids or transfer the heat in a way that the solids don't affect the process. So for medium and small scale applications, we have our Piranha unit. That is it's a direct exchange refrigeration heat pump that uses wastewater as its source. So it's standard heat pump technology paired with a specialized evaporator unit. That evaporator transfers the heat out of the wastewater directly into the refrigeration line, creating it to turn into a gas. The gas is then compressed, generating heat. The heat is transferred into typically a domestic hot water line at that point. So typical heat pump technology, water-to-water heat pump technology, but the special piece of that is the evaporator. On a larger scale, the SHARC system can be applied to larger residential buildings, higher demand commercial applications, as well as district energy thermal networks. So this process is a little bit different. There's no heat pump as part of the SHARC system, but it can be paired with a heat pump And what we do here is temporarily separate the solids from the wastewater line. And at that point, we have two separate lines, a solids and a liquid line. We flow the liquid directly through a plate heat exchanger, so it's passive heat exchange. After that heat exchange takes place, all we do is just recombine those two lines together, so it can leave the building as it normally would have. So at that point, we have transferred the heat into a process loop, and we can use that to supply a heat pump, or any really type of, anywhere where that heat can be used. It can also be used in reverse, so we can use the wastewater as a heat sink. So we can use it for cooling, and do air conditioning using wastewater as the cooling source. So we'll move ahead to a couple of case studies here. So the first one, we see the real world impact of a Piranha unit right here in Alberta at the Lake Louise Inn. So this 247 room resort faced a significant challenge with its energy relating to its commercial laundry facility. It originally relied, and still partially does rely, on propane to heat its water. By installing a Piranha unit, the resort has reduced their baseline laundry water heating demand by 45%. The system operates at very high efficiency, a COP of about 5.25. So that means for every energy of unit consumed, it produces 5.25 units of heat, or you could say it's 525% efficient. On an average day, the unit runs for 11 hours, heating 6,500 liters of water to domestic hot water temperatures of 60 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees Fahrenheit. This saves the resort 32,000 liters of propane annually. Beyond energy savings, the property can now use it to show their guests they're taking actionable, measurable steps towards sustainable energy use. So scaling up, we're going to look at a district system called Laleham Village. So this is a visionary community developed by the Musqueam Capital Corporation. It's the economic development arm of the Musqueam First Nation. The project typed for 2024 Clean 50 Top Project of the Year. At the heart of the Laleham District Energy Loop is a SHARC system, and what makes this loop unique is its ability to use and aggregate multiple waste heat sources. In addition to wastewater energy, the loop captures heat from rejected from a grocery store within the community. So instead of venting that heat into the atmosphere, it's pulled into the loop, and that also contributes to the thermal energy needs of the community. During winter months, when the demand for cooling outweighs the demand for heat, the project also uses wastewater as a heat sink. So heat is rejected into the wastewater, allowing for highly efficient space cooling. This integrated approach meets 80% of the community's thermal needs. Supported by the Clean BC Communities Fund, Laleham demonstrates how building scale innovation can be aggregated into a resilient, carbon-neutral district network that serves 1,250 homes. It's a model for creating sustainable, inclusive communities for the next 7 generations. So by focusing on design and operational analysis of these systems, we've made wastewater energy transfer a viable economic choice for a variety of applications. As cities accelerate toward their low carbon goals, wastewater energy will be a cornerstone of both public and private energy plans moving forward. I'll be available after this session to discuss in greater detail how our systems work, or what we can bring to your specific projects. So I'm with SHARC Energy. We're here in partnership with our local rep, Hatch Company, who's out of Alberta. SHARC is a Vancouver company. And come by our booth and check out our 3D printed model of the SHARC system. We've got one of the Piranha as well. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Brett. Yeah, check him out at his booth. They have the 3D models, which are really cool. They'll give you some more information on them and walk you through them. So definitely stop by and check that out. Our next speaker is Blake Bunting, co-founder and director of business development at Goparity Canada, where he has led the platform's national growth and helped channel millions into sustainable small business lending. With dual degrees in mechanical engineering and computer science and recognition as one of Canada's top 25 environmentalists under 25, Blake brings both technical expertise and a strong commitment to democratizing impact investing. Blake's session explores how everyday dollars can help build a more equitable and sustainable Canada by shifting finance from exclusion to empowerment. He'll show how impact investing opens the doors for everyone, regardless of background, to align their money with their values, supported by real-world examples like renewable energy projects for Indigenous communities. Please welcome Blake Bunting to the stage for democratizing sustainable investing, how everyone can be an investor in change.
All right, let's start with a little wellness check. How's everyone doing? Thumbs up, thumbs to the side. All right, we got some energy still. I mean, we're an hour in, so well done. I wanted to give a little recap of everything I just learned over the last hour. Starting off with Ryan telling us that trout are picky. That's a new one for me. The simple, stupid solution is often the most elegant. Thank you, Joel. There's no permafrost in southern Alberta, is what I learned from Sherry. And also it's possible to fit an overview of 18 different Chrome pages into 10 minutes. Very impressive. And finally, Brett's dog Buck prefers warm baths. So, is this a clicker? Beautiful. My name is Blake Bunting, and I'm the co-founder and director of business development at Goparity Canada. And we help Canadians invest their money in sustainable and social impact projects. Before I get into that, I wanted to give a little bit of story of who I am and where Goparity's come from. This is a picture of me and my two co-founders, Emily and Elliot, back in 2021 when we had an idea. We were university students and we really wanted to start investing, but we didn't really know how. We were young when we didn't have that much money. But we really wanted to make sure we were doing that with our values. We were really interested in renewable energy and other types of projects that we thought made sense to be investing in. But we really quickly found out that there weren't options for most of us to invest. So we set out to change that. And that actually took us to Portugal, where we realized that across the European Union, there was a lot of businesses that were helping individuals invest directly into local projects that were changing the world. And in 2023, we came together with Goparity, an organization based out of Portugal, to make Goparity Canada possible, to bring our dream alive in Canada, allow Canadians to invest directly into small businesses that were changing the world across Canada. And so what exactly is that? What's the innovation here? Well, what we do is we allow individuals and organizations to invest as little as $20 directly into small businesses that are working on projects aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. Very specifically, they're investing in loans. So these loans have a fixed term, a fixed interest rate that you can earn money on, and some sort of execution that you can see the impact you're making, often quantified with tangible impact metrics. Investors are then able to actually pick and choose between projects across Canada, often in their own local community, that align with their values, align with their return goals, align with time horizon, and anything else that is meaningful for your investment preferences. And finally, once you've started investing, you can track both the impact you're making and the performance of your investments all through the platform. So far, Goparity has made a pretty big impact, and it's all because of our investment community. So over the last 10 years, we've invested about $80 million into projects all over the world, just about 500 different projects, and 140 organizations and counting. In Canada, we've been in the market for 2 years, and we just came up on our 20th project funded by our community of over 1,000 Canadian investors. In Canada specifically, we're funding projects all across the country, anywhere from Vancouver Island all the way over to Newfoundland. And so that could look like childcare facilities, it could look like sustainable building materials that we're supporting, it could look like an oyster farm in Nova Scotia, and one of my favorites can look like renewable energy for First Nations communities. So I wanted to show a little case study with a really beautiful picture, I think. So this is a school, an elementary school, on the Gwasala-Nakwada First Nations community. This is, some of you might know where Port Hardy is on Vancouver Island. This is just on the north end of town. And it's a nation made up of the Gwasala and the Nakwada peoples. And so a few years ago, this school was built and went into operation. I don't know exactly when, but last year they had the idea that they wanted to install solar on their roof. And the reason being, one, of course, this is a cheaper and cleaner source of energy for the building, but two, because Port Hardy is situated right at the tip of Vancouver Island, they're what's called an end-of-line, end-of-transmission line community. And what that means, they often face power outages, blackouts across the community. So solar can actually add resiliency to supporting the community when they need it most. So with the help of Goparity and our investors, we're able to provide $50,000 in funding to get the project installed and operational, with the repayment coming from some government funding that actually covered the project, but only once it was up and running. And so this happened in about April of this year, and in the fall, we were able to share this video, if it comes up. Will it play? Nice. With our investors. And I will warn you, the red roof is different from the last picture, but it's the building on the bottom right. And you can see here that the project is now commissioned and up and running in less than a year from when our investors started investing. So they can see exactly where their money is going, earned a solid monthly return for the whole year, and now have their capital back and can see what money can really do when invested in our local economy and our local community. And so that was on Vancouver Island, but I know we're in Calgary, we're in Alberta. And I can't give too much away, but I will tell you we are open in Alberta, and we do very soon have our first project or investment opportunity coming onto the platform that is based very close by, and in a really interesting sector that I'm really excited about. And to finish off, I always have to do this. I need to put my money where my mouth is. I believe that everyone can be an impact investor, regardless if you're a student, an entrepreneur, a professional, sophisticated investor, a researcher, everyone. We should be able to invest in our future. And so to make sure of that, I wanted to offer you each $50 to make your first investment with Goparity for those interested. So I'll leave this up here for a couple minutes. But otherwise, that was a little overview of what we do. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, sorry, give me a second. Okay. Thank you, Blake. That was such an inspiring presentation. It's nice to see that your money can be used towards a more sustainable Canada and really help further along some great projects. If you want to chat with him further, you can meet with him after in the networking lounge or just around the conference. Our next speaker is Joe Angevine. He brings nearly 20 years of experience in the waste and recycling industry. With a Bachelor of Management from the University of Lethbridge, he spent the past 13 years managing the Foothills Regional Landfill and Resource Recovery Center. Joe also holds a Master's in Environmental and Management from Royal Roads University, where his thesis on the 2013 High River flood focused on advancing disaster debris management practices across Alberta. In this session, Joe will walk us through the evolution of a unique partnership that has created meaningful benefits for the community, from employment and volunteer opportunities, including for individuals with special needs, to significant waste diversion and revenue generation from materials once considered waste. Please welcome me in joining Joe Angevine to the stage for the Foothills Salvage and Recycling Society, a public nonprofit success story.
Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be here today. See how this works. Oh, no. Going the wrong way. There we are. Okay, happy to be here today to talk to you about one of the coolest parts of the site that I've been working at for the last, well, just over a decade now, is the what's called the Salvage Center. So my landfill is just south of Calgary here by Okotoks. We service 5 different municipalities, and we work in a partnership with this nonprofit organization called the Foothills Salvage and Recycling Society. So we share the site with them at our landfill site. We're a public landfill, but we basically donated the land to them, and we kind of work with them to help maintain the site, maintain the access, the roads, all those types of things. But they've become a real key part to our site, and we do a lot of site tours and stuff, almost more site tours of the Salvage Center than we do of our own landfill site. People are really interested in what we do there, and it's become a huge success story. So Vanessa asked me to come in today and present and kind of spread the word on how we got this started, and hopefully some more municipalities can follow this success story. So how this started, I can't take credit for this. This happened before I started the site. It was like 20 years ago. It was literally a lady who was a keen, avid recycler and wanted to promote salvage. She had an old military tent that someone donated to her, and she set it up in the parking lot at the landfill. So this is just a rural landfill, and she just set this tent up. It became kind of a take it or leave it thing. People could come in and just, I've got I've got an old baby carriage, or I've got a whatever. I've got bike or something like that that still works and can be used. Rather than throw it in the landfill, put it in the tent. It grew over time. They expanded and got a bigger parking lot. They got grant money to build buildings, all these types of things like that. And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So everything from construction materials, housing, light fixtures, doors, sinks, you name it. They've got everything in there. And it's honestly, the place is busier than the landfill is. It's become a very popular place for people in the region, in the Foothills region. So today they're up to 3 large buildings. The one building I think is about 20,000 square feet. So it's almost the size of like if you go to one in the city. What do they call that? No. The place where you can buy the secondhand stores in the cities. It's like the size of one of those large ones in the city. Goodwill stores, yes, thank you. But it's actually located at a landfill, so that's the difference. So many people bring stuff to the landfill that is in good shape, but because of the convenience of having this place at the landfill site, that makes the big difference, and that's what sets us apart from a typical Goodwill store, is the location. So much stuff. I would say 10 to 20% of the stuff that's brought to the landfill people don't want. They're going to toss it. if you have this option at the landfill. A lot of landfills will have like a small take it or leave it little shed, and like there's some books in there and some small stuff, but the scale of this is what makes it different and kind of separates it from other landfill sites. So just some stats for you on how much diversion we're seeing. 250 tons, that's just like books and paper and stuff that they recycle. They collect a lot of clothing, so they have like the bins you can drop off your clothes and stuff like that. It's hard to say exactly how much tonnage they divert from the landfill, but we estimate it's in the range of 15 to 20,000 metric tons a year because we don't have scales at the salvage center. The stuff goes in there, they handle it. We don't deal with it on our landfill scales, but it is constant. That building is overturning its materials, every couple of months. Everything that's in there is being sold. So basically the idea is they take it for free if it's in good working condition, and then they sell it for garage sale prices. And that's the key to the working model is, one, it's a nonprofit organization. It's not run by a municipality. I've seen other communities try and do this where they get the safety, the municipality tries to do it with municipal staff and the safety people get involved, and then all of a sudden they can't lift anything, they can't move anything, they can't take anything that could potentially, be sharp or anything like that. The fact that this is a nonprofit organization, they have volunteers, all these types of things, it makes it way more successful than some of the other ones I've seen. And just for example, the type of revenue you can get just from garage sale pricing on stuff like this, almost $1 million in revenue, which otherwise would have just all gone into the landfill. So that's just stuff that if it hadn't gone to these guys and generated that revenue, it would have been landfilled. Another cool aspect of this group is we get a lot of like special needs people and stuff like that that come out and work at the site. A lot of older people provide volunteer hours, gives them something, a good cause to get involved in, people that are keen to recycle and divert waste. So it's become a really cool kind of community element going on there too. All these different groups get involved and volunteer out there, which is pretty cool. They also have 6 full-time employees, so it also generates employment for the region. 7 part-time employees, and one of those is a special needs person, as I mentioned. So, and this is, again, all generated from stuff that would otherwise just be waste. 4,950 hours, volunteer hours in 2023. And at the end of the year, they donate anything that they don't spend on their operations and their staff wages and stuff like that gets donated to local charities, women's shelters, all these types of things that they do. Youth, they also have youth can work off their probation hours at this facility as well. So that's a pretty cool thing that gets done as well. And in 2023, they donated $160,000 to local charities. There's a list of some of the charities that they did, food banks, women's shelters, all those types of cool things. So just a huge benefit all the way around to the community. We at the landfill, we're a public landfill, so that, some private landfills might not like the lost revenue from something like this, so we're diverting waste from the landfill that otherwise we could be charging. The way we do it though, we have the trailer up at where the residents are dropping off, so they've already scaled. So we actually don't lose that much revenue from this by doing this, because we're often pulling stuff off that they've already scaled in. They're gonna dump in a bin anyways. Our guys catch it before it gets dumped. We throw it in this trailer, and then we run, 5 to 6 loads of this trailer down a week down to the salvage center where they sell it. So we actually, through this model, some people will go directly there. We lose that revenue, but a lot of it is not actually lost because they still have to pay for it. They're just dropping it in a different spot. And 90% of the people that realize that that's what's happening, they're like, I don't care. I just want to get rid of it. That's kind of the mentality of people. And then we have a combined position. So we really have, one of the things I've focused on as the manager of the site is to try and work better as a partnership with these guys. In the past, it was often they had their own thing and the landfill was their own separate thing. I've tried to work together. We even have a combined position, that their position is fully just meant to help increase the amount of diverted waste. They go up to each customer that comes to the bins. Hey, how you doing? What do you got? Anything that I can salvage? Anything that still works? They also ask them, do you got paint, chemicals? Make sure that stuff isn't going in the wrong place. All these types of questions. So that, again, just building that partnership. Excuse me. And we have some pretty cool stuff where, this guy on the right here, he comes in about once a month and he just gets a bunch of bikes that are in working condition. He ships them to Africa. We've worked with fire departments through these guys to take old gear that is no longer certified in Canada, but we ship it to places like Guatemala. All these kind of cool stories that are all done. Anytime I get a call for something one-off stuff like that, I always direct them to the Salvage Center, and then we work with them to help those people divert that waste and find a good use for it. And then, running the site obviously creates additional traffic flow for us. We had to build better roads, all those types of things. So there were some extra costs for the landfill, but I would say the benefits vastly outweigh it, and it's become a huge success story for the whole region. All right, there's our cool logo. So thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Joe, for telling us all about that process. If you want to chat more with him about it, learn how you can get involved, or learn how you can implement something like that yourself, things like that, find him in the networking lounge, find him around the conference, scope him out after this, and he'd be happy to chat with you a bit more. Our next speaker is Colin Pattison from the SAIT eDNA Research Lab. After starting his career in finance, Colin shifted his focus to the natural world and has spent the last 2 decades immersed in environmental science and education. At SAIT, he helped build the environmental technology program and now teaches ecology, environmental assessment, sustainable design, and site reclamation, as well as leading SAIT's field school in Kananaskis. His session takes us into the rapidly evolving field of environmental DNA and how this technology is transforming the way we identify, monitor, and ultimately protect biodiversity. Colin will highlight how eDNA allows researchers to detect species by analyzing tiny fragments of genetic material left behind in the environment, unlocking a faster, safer, and more efficient alternative to traditional field surveys. Please join me in welcoming Colin to the stage for Molecules to Lifeforms, our experiences developing an eDNA research program using nanotechnology.
Hi, everybody. I'm Colin. As was said, I've been teaching in SAIT's environmental technology program for several years now. It's nice to see some graduates out there and some students as well. Last year, my work changed quite substantially when SAIT invested in a program to build scholarly outputs through the Research Fellowship Program. And I was fortunate to be accepted into that program. At that time, I'd already come across a new technology that I was very excited about, and I wanted to know if we could use it and apply it to real-world problems with projects that involved our students. So at about that same time, I had started working with 2 capstone students that were using or wanted to use environmental DNA to identify mammals from field snow tracks that we would gather. And I'm very fortunate that this person on my right, I think you're right as well. I'm fortunate that Olivia, one of the graduates from that program, agreed to come along and work with me over the last 8 months. So what we're trying to do, looks like the title's a little, maybe my font didn't work, but that should say the goals of the lab. So the goals of the lab are to develop safe, efficient, scientifically valid methods for detecting and monitoring species in our natural environment. And so you might be wondering, like, why would we want to do that? And there's a lot of applications for environmental DNA, but one of the reasons for doing this is that Canada is currently embarking on the investments of many billions of dollars in infrastructure spending, and a lot of that development is going to occur in natural areas. And so to conserve and protect our natural heritage, we need to understand the species that exist in those areas before we start development. But traditional methods for doing that can be hazardous, they can be slow, sometimes they can be expensive. So if you imagine detecting amphibians in a wetland and you have to arrive there early in the morning before daylight and you need to return there again after sunset, and then repeatedly returning to those sites. So for some of us, that might sound very exciting, but at the same time, it's expensive, hazardous, and time-consuming. So we're researching and applying advanced technologies for the detection of various species in our environment. And one of those technologies that we're using is environmental DNA. And so some of you may already know what eDNA is, but for those of you who don't, if you think about the dust in our homes, think about the dust in my home. Much of that dust might be our own dead skin cells. And so if I took the dust from my home and brought it to our lab, we could extract the DNA from it and then process it in the lab to determine that in my home, humans live there, as well as a couple of dogs. And if we look at the natural environment, in natural environments, plants and animals also shed their DNA, and that's what we mean by environmental DNA or eDNA. Over the past year in our lab, less than a year actually, we've learned to sample eDNA from the environment with yields that are high enough to analyze in Alberta's sometimes harsh ecosystems. We've learned to extract it in our lab. We can isolate the DNA. We can now amplify it for the target species that we're looking for. We can sequence it, and then we can match that up against the strands of known species so that we can detect the animals and plants that may have existed in those natural environments. And that's an important first step in preservation of our natural heritage. So I ran through that process pretty quickly, but all of this applies a lot of advanced technology. So one of those is biotech, so we're using commercially available kits combined with a lot of micropipetting to break down the cell walls and allow DNA out into solution, and then we can clean it up and remove unwanted organics, proteins, RNA, the stuff we don't want. Then we amplify those small strands using PCR, or polymerase chain reaction. And the little device that we're using is inexpensive. It cost us about $1,500. And it's also portable. So eventually we're hoping that we can take these processes to the field. Our sequencing device is very small. I call it the granola bar because that's about the size that it is. And it uses about 1,000 nanopores. The nanopores are so small that they allow a single molecule to pass through each nanopore at a time. And as that happens, the DNA sequence is identified based on varying electrical fields. So that device has allowed us to learn so much. When I started the eDNA project at SAIT, I thought that we would train students to take eDNA samples, but I quickly learned that we needed to understand the whole process so that we could do that well. We can now do full spectrum projects from question formulation to field sampling to lab processing to PCR amplification to sequencing, comparison to reference databases, all in our little lab. And this has allowed us to take on a variety of projects with our students. So we're currently working on an amphibian project. As many of you probably know, amphibians are declining worldwide, and there may be waterways in Alberta that contained amphibians 15 years ago that might not have them today. So over the summertime, we gathered samples from 11 streams, ponds, and wetlands around Calgary and processed them in our lab. And that really improved our field and lab process procedures. And then we took those and used them to train our students. So we're also working on a snow track study where we locate mammal tracks in the snow. We gather it, melter it, filter it, isolate the DNA, and we can identify the species that were there. We're working with students on a variety of projects across academic programs. So the Artificial Intelligence program, Environmental Tech, Water Management. We've got 2 groups that are working on detecting invasive species. One's learning to detect whirling disease, another's learning to detect crayfish, and another's learning to detect zebra mussels. We're working on detecting DNA in the air. We've got 2 students that are learning to detect mammals from spider webs as biofilters. We're prototyping air monitors. We've got multiple projects with, as I said, artificial intelligence students who are helping us to classify the hundreds of gigabytes of acoustic and trail camera data that we're also collecting. So a lot of this is beginning to pay off. We're having quite a few successes in developing protocols and procedures for that work in Alberta's ecosystems and environment. This may lead to early detection of invasive species. It may lead to us being able to detect secretive species. We're using what we're learning to inform our programs with good quality science and the application of really advanced technologies. And this has led to a variety of interdisciplinary projects, as I talked about, collaborative projects across SAIT. And ultimately, I think this will lead to more sustainable, safe, and efficient data collection and monitoring systems that our graduates can take from our program off to the work world. So in less than a year, we've already worked with, that says 26 students, we've worked with more than 50 students already. At our field school, half the students volunteered their time to gather samples and extract DNA at the Kananaskis Field Station, which is just west of us. We've already finished 3 projects. We're currently working on multiple student projects. One of those was the amphibians project, where we actually read 3.6 million DNA strands in about 7 hours. 110,000 of those were amphibian DNA. Our spiderwebs project that we worked on just last week, we were able to amplify with a mammal-specific primer and generated 100 times increase in the DNA yield. We've already identified snow tracks for wolves, cougar, bison. So our lab is pretty small. There are currently 2 of us, but we work with lots of students. We're working at a small area that was previously a storage room. We've been supported by the School of Energy and SAIT, but we've borrowed and repurposed a lot of underutilized equipment and donated supplies. We're very excited at how quickly the lab is developing. We've come a long way in a very short time, and we're super excited about what's to come in 2026 and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin, for that fascinating presentation. If you'd like to connect with him further to learn more about his lab work, you can meet with him after, during the break, or in the networking lounge. He'll be around and he's happy to chat. Now I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker, Dan O'Brien, a recognized sustainability leader with more than 25 years of experience advising governments, financial institutions, and global companies on climate and nature-related risk. During his 18 years at PwC, he co-founded the Center for Nature Positive Business and served as the firm's global nature lead. His work now focuses increasingly on the responsible use of artificial intelligence to address systematic challenges. Dan's session introduces a groundbreaking methodology for AI-enabled risk assessment that aligns with TNFD's Disclosure, Impact, Risk, and Opportunities framework. He'll demonstrate how combining semantic ontologies, geospatial context, sector-specific impact pathways, and knowledge graph reasoning can finally bridge the gap between scattered environmental data and clear decision-ready insights. Please join me in welcoming Dan O'Brien to the stage for Ecognos, an intelligence system for environmental risk assessments. This is also going to be a little technical transition, so just bear with us for a couple minutes while we get that set up.
Hi, everyone. I'm doing what they always recommend not to do, which is a live demo, so we'll see if it works. So this is going to come up on. Should I just go with the VGA instead?
Do you have HDMI input there? You
Sorry.
should be able to. Hold on, look for input.
Yeah. Just do the entire screen. Yeah, there we go. All right. Oop. Not a lot of space up here. Let me see if I can put this right here. All right. And we'll do the slideshow. Cool. Well, thank you all for being here today. I started my career as an ecologist, building spatial temporal models, working with species at risk, doing cumulative effects assessment. And back then, it was always trying to understand how do you manage resource development on the landscape and balance that with ecosystem values, with cultural values. How do you figure out how much is too much in terms of development in order to achieve some kind of sustainable development? Well, I ended up at PwC, and for 18 years, I worked with companies and financial institutions on environmental risk. So how do companies assess and understand environmental risk, and how do they manage it? How do they recognize it? How do they quantify it? I then had the opportunity to participate in an international initiative called the Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosure. So I was a member of this TNFD task force. And it was all about how do you build out the framework for businesses to understand what the nature-related risks are. It's based around this framework, this concept that you have impacts on nature, but you also have dependencies on nature. And those dependencies and impacts can then translate through into risks or opportunities for a business. And a lot of that involves metrics and measurement. And one of the roles I had was I was part of the data and analytics working group. So I got to see all of the different nature tech platforms that were emerging around the world. eDNA, for example, is a really interesting new area. There's a lot of companies now that are focusing on eDNA. And what I saw was that there's a lot of measurement. There's a lot of data and metrics that are being provided. Companies can send their business locations, their assets, to different providers, and they get these spreadsheets back or these dashboards. And they've got measurements about the ecosystem condition, how close they are to a protected area, whether they're in proximity of species at risk, what the water risk is, all of these different metrics. But the problem is that they don't have the context always to actually understand what those measurements mean. So it's a bit like taking your temperature and to see if you have a fever, but you don't know what normal body temperature is. So interpreting those data points that they're receiving and trying to understand if there are actual risks there is next to impossible if you don't have the additional context. So the challenge here is that the investment community and banks and financial institutions are starting to take nature risk very seriously, and they're looking across their portfolios to identify where there are pockets of hotspots of nature risk, and they're starting to make capital allocation decisions. They're starting to direct capital towards businesses that are lower risk or that are effectively managing that risk, or it's coming into loan decisions. So credit risk might affect the interest rate that you get on a loan. Also, business valuations. Even private equity now are starting to think on the longer term, 10 to 20 years out, and looking at these businesses that they're investing in effectively managing these risks, and the ones that are seeing higher business valuations. So there's a growing business case for why it's important to really understand nature risk. So I'm just going to jump over and talk a bit about this concept. So I developed this platform, I'm calling it Ecognos. So eco for environment and cognos for knowledge. And it uses a well-established approach that's quite common in other fields, like the medical field or in financial crime. They use it to extract information from medical journals to help build applications for doctors, say, who want to improve their ability to diagnose disease, or to try to perform drug discovery to look for other applications for drugs for different diseases. The idea behind it is that information can be represented in what's called a knowledge graph. So this is an example of a knowledge graph here. It's essentially a network of nodes where each node represents an entity or a thing, and they have relationships between them. So if I were to show you these slides, you might have a company. A company owns an asset. Asset has a business process. So you can see there's the entities and then the relationships between them. That business process drives a pressure or an impact on nature. That pressure has an effect on the state of nature. The state of nature declines. It can no longer support the ecosystem service. And that ecosystem service, if it starts to fail, that creates a risk to a business, because the company might have a dependency on that ecosystem. Or if the company's impacting a sensitive area, then there may be a regulatory or compliance issue associated with that creates risk. So by representing the semantic concepts in a knowledge graph and structuring it in what's called an ontology, which basically defines all of those different entities and the relationships between them, you can then use artificial intelligence to extract information from reams and reams of documents and associate it with those nodes in the knowledge graph, so that you can get very specific reasoning traces from that information. So it will find information about, company has business process. Well, it might be, mining company is doing open pit mining, and open pit mining has a particular impact associated with it. So with this approach, we're solving this key issue with large language models right now, which is that they have a tendency to make things up. They hallucinate, right? And if you're in the business of doing risk assessments and looking at trying to understand what these risks are, you don't want to trust, you do want to rather trust the response that you're getting back from this model. You don't just want to take it at face value. So you need to have provenance. You need to have an audit trail that shows where did this information come from. So this is the platform. It's called Ecognos. So you start off with uploading documents, and those documents get ingested into the system, and the concepts in the documents get associated with the knowledge graph. So you can see here, I've used publicly available information for a mining company called Newmont. So they have a number of mines, about 20 of them around the world, a few of them in British Columbia. You can see I've got things in here like the environmental impact assessment reports, various environmental reports that they have, probably submissions mostly to their regulators. And the way that I've set it up is to show a particular workflow. So, imagine here you are working for a client and you're conducting an assessment of what their material nature-related risks are for the business. So, the first thing you can do is select a particular asset. So I've got all 20 of Newmont's mine sites in here. And you can build a risk register. So the risk register is essentially the system's proposed risks, the potential risks that exist for a business. So we've got things like high freshwater use has an impact at the mine. We've got things like dependency on water purification services that are in proximity to biodiversity sensitive areas, or emissions of non-GHG air pollutants that are impacting biodiversity. And it bases these proposed risks on the information that it's got in that knowledge graph. So it knows about the business, the sector that it's in, the business processes, and how that translates through into potential risks. And then it provides a description of what that risk is. So I don't know if you can probably read that at the back there, but it's giving you a very specific description of that risk and the reasoning trace. So they're using flotation for tailings. That drives in generation of release of solid wastes. They're using surface open pit mining, and that drives this type of waste as well. But the key thing here is you can bring in spatial information, so environmental context. So if you have monitoring information or information derived from GIS, that can be brought in, and that provides additional context for how it assesses these risks. So in this case here, we've got a number of risks in our risk registry. We can now then assess them. You can first of all look and see where exactly is that mine site. So it's way up here in the northern part of British Columbia. And this provides you with additional environmental context about the site. So we can zoom right in and see, there's the mine site there. And we might have a number of environmental metrics that we've also measured alongside of that. And then what's really key to this system is the way that you query the data. So there's a number of different parameters that you can set to either provide a very constrained query, where it's looking specifically for information about this particular mine and this particular issue, or you can relax the parameters and use a much broader approach where it might start to pick up information from other mines that might be relevant, or the industry as a whole, or if you have other sectors in here, it might pull that information in. So the first thing that you would do then is assess, so here's some more information about the context. You might assess the relevance. So thinking about risk, you've got sort of two aspects to it. One is this proposed risk relevant? And if it is, then what's the vulnerability of the business to that particular risk? So it gives you a proposed question. So, is generation of solid waste materially relevant to this asset given its operations and locations? And then it gives you some context as well. It says, what are the things that it should look for, like permitting, operational reports, spatial indicators, etc. And you can then tweak the query to have it very constrained or more broad, and run the query, and you get a very specific response. So in this case, it's saying generation and release of solid waste is materially relevant given its mining operations and site context. The operations produce solid waste in the form of flotation tailings discharged as slurry to permanent tailings storage, waste rock stored in rock storage area, and low-grade ore stockpiled. Operational metrics include approximately 13.9 megatons per annum ore throughout. So you can see it's picking up very specific information about this particular risk. And then it also gives you the chunks of information, so the data that it pulled from the report. So you can bring that up and view in the viewer, and see the specific text where it comes from in the report. So as the analyst, you can actually go in and see, okay, it found that information on this page in the report right here. You can then assign your rating. You can add some relevance notes. You save the assessment, and then it takes you back to the vulnerability questions. So same thing. Now it's starting to look for evidence that there are effective controls in place. Are there mitigation plans? Are there examples of incident reports, etc. So you can see here it's saying mitigation controls at the site to reduce solid waste risk include conventional mining and processing methods, such as crushing, grinding, flotation to separate ore from waste. However, significant weaknesses and external stressors exist. Pre-existing issues include tailings and waste rock seepage, instability risks to tailings dams, et cetera, et cetera. But it's also giving you limitations. It's saying the evidence does not provide details on specific monitoring results, audits, or enforcement actions, or quantified performance metrics. So it's not just giving you the information that it has found, it's also telling you what it hasn't found, so that as an analyst, you might want to go out and try to find that information to support or improve your rating. So again, maybe we say that's a low relevance, and we save that assessment. Let me go back. So you can imagine, trying to get through 20 different sites, and each one's got at least a dozen or so different risks. Can take quite a while, but this would allow you to speed that up significantly. And then you can generate a report. So the report basically gives you the summary of all of the risks. So here we've got red crisp. What is the issue? How is that risk determined? What's the reasoning trace? The spatial signals, a description of the risk, the relevance notes, the vulnerability notes, the ratings, and then the specific citations that you used to assess these particular risks. So now as an analyst, you've got a report with all of the reasoning behind how you've assessed that risk that you can then put into the file to support your assessments and sign it off. So that's a very quick kind of walkthrough of the platform and how it works. I think that the most important thing here that we're trying to do with, or what I'm trying to do with Ecognos, is really flip the time that's taken to do this type of assessment. So typically people spend 80% of their time trying to gather information, read through all that information in order to infer what these types of risks might be. If we can flip that so that they're spending maybe 20% of their time on the data collection and trying to make sense of that data, then they've got 80% of their time to use their professional judgment and really think through what these risks are. So the idea is to get high precision responses from the LLM and use that to really reason over and think through what these risks are. It provides you with the contextual information to consider the spatial information, the environmental information, and also the precision in the audit trail to basically turn environmental metrics into actionable, trustworthy insights. So that's Ecognos. It's currently configured for this type of workflow, but there's, it could be configured for any type of application that you can really think of that requires this type of assessment. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dan, for that presentation. If you'd like to continue the conversation with him, he'll be around. You can connect with him in the networking lounge or just around the conference if you see him. I do want to announce we had a slight change in agenda. So it was supposed to be Derek Lee here with Rural Routes to Climate Solutions to talk about climate solutions rooted in rural Alberta. But unfortunately, Derek is unwell and unable to make it. But I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about his presentation, just in case he's well and able to attend tomorrow, as he's hoping to. So just to give you a little bit of background, Derek is the Executive Director of Rural Routes to Climate Solutions. He brings more than a decade of experience as an organizer and communicator working at the intersection of climate action and food security. His career has taken him from national organizations like Food Secure Canada to respected publications, and now to leading innovative programs that help rural communities adopt climate solutions. His session would have focused on how placing community members at the center of decision-making can accelerate climate solutions in Alberta, drawing on Rural Routes to Climate Solutions, flagship initiatives. RR2CS collaborates with producers, Indigenous knowledge holders, and rural residents to develop climate strategies grounded in local realities and geographic context, by empowering people with lived experiences on land to lead creation, testing, and scaling of solutions. These projects foster trust, build capacity, and strengthen community leadership. So if this sounds like something that you'd want to learn more about, you can see Derek's photo on the screen. Seek him out at the conference tomorrow if he's well and in attendance. I'm sure he would love to chat with you further on this. And if not, please connect with him on LinkedIn and chat with him, start the conversation there. But that being said, we will move it on to our next speaker, who I'm pleased to introduce, Kasim Khan, co-founder and chief technology officer of AgriPhoton. He's a University of Calgary spin-out developing advanced photonic technologies to improve light efficiency in greenhouses and controlled environment agriculture. At AgriPhoton, he leads the development and commercialization of innovations designed to enhance food security and sustainability through practical, scalable solutions. In his session, Kasim will introduce how AgriPhoton is transforming greenhouse and controlled environment agriculture through advanced photonic coatings that convert unused sunlight into photosynthetically active light. He'll explain how his technology boosts crop productivity without added energy or infrastructure, offering a smarter alternative to traditional shading methods. please join me in welcoming Kasim Khan to the stage for AgriPhoton, Advanced Photonic Technology for Sustainable Greenhouse Agriculture.
Good afternoon. I think she introduced my company better than me. So I will try to further comprehend with that. My name is Kasim Khan. I'm the CEO of AgriPhoton, and I'm helping growers to grow more. So we are utilizing the nanomaterials and semiconductors to improve the yield as well as reduce their reliance on electricity. So how it works, the AgriPhoton, the name shows the agri means agriculture, short for agriculture, and photon is for light. So through the photonic materials, we are helping the greenhouse owners as well as the controlled environment agriculture to grow more, simply. So let's see. Okay, yeah. I am the CEO and also acting as a CTO of AgriPhoton. I have a PhD degree in nanomaterials and 10 years of experience in working in nanomaterials. On many other applications, I have found out this application. Did you know the world population will be 10 billion by 2050? And currently, the world population is 8 billion. So that means that until 2050, we have produced more, that is a lot more, is 50 to 60%. And currently, we cannot do that in order to feed our own population. The reason being not only the population, but also the shrinkage of agricultural land. It's a big problem. Very few people talking about this. Also, due to the unpredictable weather conditions, we cannot control the conditions outside. We were not expecting the snow, but now we have snow. In last October, we planted some crops, and then there was one night where the temperature went below zero, and it's totally ruined our total tomato crops. So that's how we cannot control the outside environment. And due to those problems, we here in Canada, we are relying on imports. We are importing 60 to 65% of fresh produce from the US, especially in winter time. So that means our agriculture, our own food production is not efficient. We have to think about it. And also due to the current problem, the geopolitical situation, the tariff war intensifies the problem. So due to all this, we are facing significant issues, a lot of issues for our own inside Canada, the food security problems. Now, how people do solve these problems? Definitely people think of bringing the agriculture to inside. We call it a controlled environment agriculture. But the controlled environment agriculture has its own issues, especially if we talk about the greenhouse agriculture. So the greenhouse, a typical greenhouse needs $200 to $300 per square meters to install the lighting within the greenhouse, because for the crops, there are three inputs, main three inputs needs to be there in order for a plant to grow and produce fruit and food for us. So that is, the first thing is water, the second is carbon dioxide, and the third is light. So with the help of, in the presence of light, in the presence of water and carbon dioxide, with the help of light, the plant starts to grow. I will try not to be too boring, so please bear with me. And so definitely these lighting systems, they need to install a lot of lighting. We call it grow lights. So the grow lights are very important for the controlled environment agriculture. And obviously these grow lights do not run by itself. There is electricity needed for this. And it is a conservative estimation that $140 plus $1,000 per hectare per year growers spend on the lighting system because of the electricity. On top of that, you know, all these not coming for free. It comes at a heavy environmental cost. A gentleman before was talking about the greenhouse gases. And you know, alone 1 hectare of greenhouse cost 240 to 750 metric tons of carbon dioxide emission. We call it greenhouse emissions. So what we do at AgriPhoton, it's a straightforward solution. As I said, that I've been working on the nanomaterials. So the current greenhouse is basically, they block the part of the solar radiations coming to the greenhouse because they are not as good as the plant need, especially the high energy ones. You can see the spike on the blue spike, that and above that, we call it, you can see below it, but actually above means the high energy. So the higher energy light is not good for the plants. That's why they have to block it. So a typical greenhouse looks like it, the left side in the picture. What we do, we take our quantum materials, our nanomaterials, and those nanomaterials are so good to work for this purpose is they take the underutilized solar radiations, and I will try to show that now through this small demonstration. So let's say this is a typical greenhouse. So it's on the left. Let's see, I will try to keep it here. And then the one we invented or we created by using the nanomaterials is on the right side from your angle. So what happens, this is a light, UV, or even the one which is basically not too high energy, but it is that blue spike we can see at the screen. So this is that blue spike, and this is a typical greenhouse. We are not getting as much of light. We can see not too much, but if we see here, that is our invention. So what we do, we capture those high energy radiations through this material, and this material can help us transform the spectrum from the one on the right side, the one on the left side to the one on the right side. And by doing so, we transform the spectrum. So this spectrum you are seeing on the screen is the best spectrum for the plants to grow, the best. By the best, I mean, this is a conservative guess. We have demonstrated multiple times at the University of Calgary that we can improve up to 35% of yield for tomatoes, lettuce, cucumber. And that's those 3 crops we have tested multiple times. That's why I'm mentioning them. And also, it can reduce the energy cost by 20%. That is 20% or even more. It's a significant improvement in terms of crops growth. Also, a significant reduction in terms of energy use. So it's a straightforward solution for that. We have tested this multiple times at University of Calgary facility, at University of British Columbia, Kwantlen Polytechnic University, as well as now in Netherlands, because Netherlands is the #1 country in Europe. They are transporting the fresh produce, flowers, as well as the other tomatoes and so on. So it's because of the advanced photonic technologies, the advanced greenhouse technology. I should not say the photonic. We are very lucky, and I am safe to say that this technology we are working on is, nobody is working on this, as to the best of my knowledge. And this is the technology we are bringing to market very soon. The innovation is a lot there. So what happens at the real situation? So there are 3 types of greenhouses. The one is the one on the right side is, the one on the right side is called the high-tech. Normally they have rigid roofs, strong cover materials, and they are all there throughout the year. And so they also utilize the grow lights, they have to utilize the grow lights. They are much more like advanced, also very much of investment needed, and also throughout the year they can produce because they have ventilators, they have cooling system, and all the things needed for the plants to grow. So basically they can grow any crop any time of the year. Even the crops which normally people grow outside in summer, they can grow in winter and vice versa. The one in the middle is another type is called mid-tech. Normally they are not relying on lighting and they are not relying on the ventilating system. They are covered. They are large covers like polytunnels on the other side, on the left side. But they are more advanced in terms of they still have some controls, but because of the high energy cost and electricity cost, they cannot sustain, so they do not even install those lighting. So those are the central ones are the mid-tech. The other one is called low-tech. This is actually our target. The reason being, normally the growers and farmers, especially small farmers, they do not have a lot of investment to go for those high-tech and sophisticated setup. So normally they just have a polytunnel. It's also called polytunnel or low-tech or high tunnels. They are plastic covers or sheetings on top, and then underneath they grow. With this setup, people can grow cucumber, tomato, strawberry the best, and so on, a lot more. So this controls the environment up to 40 to 50%, which means that they can boost the crop's growth 40 to 50% more compared to the outside environment. What we do, we have 3 products. We have developed 3 products. You can see this product is the central one, which is the flexible sheet. So this flexible sheet basically is the one we can go to any setup, any greenhouse, even in this room, in this setup, we can spread this sheet underneath the lighting and it will start to work. This is 100% solar powered. It does not need any electricity. It works by itself throughout the year, and it can have a lifetime of 15 years. But because of the plastic material we have incorporated the nanomaterials into, it has a limitation of 3 to 5 years. So it will work 3 to 5 years, but even if somebody can remove or separate the plastic from the nanomaterials or the nanomaterials from the plastic, it can reintegrate into another sheet. So having said, it's a safe material, it's a good for environment, and it's 100% solar powered, and hopefully we can see this technology coming soon. We are the University of Calgary spin-off, and we are heavily working on this technology from the last 2 to 3 years. We have some funding from Alberta Innovates, and we are hoping to have more. If anybody is interested to be part of this initiative, we would love to have you with us, and thank you very much. AgriPhoton is our website. You can reach out to us. My office is at the University of Calgary, so that is my email. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kasem, for that awesome presentation and also just great product demonstration. That was fun to watch. Like he said, if you'd like to continue the conversation, he's super interested in doing that. I can go back to the slide. There's his email, there's his website. Seek him out and continue the conversation. Now I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker, Jonathan Brunn, CEO and founder of Nimonik, a global platform that helps organizations streamline regulatory compliance and access industry standards in one place. Jonathan has worked with companies and governments around the world to identify regulatory obligations, manage corrective actions, and conduct audits that support ongoing compliance. In this session, Jonathan will show how AI can simplify complex environmental regulations by identifying relevant requirements, summarizing dense legal clauses, and highlighting obligations for specific facilities or operations. Instead of sorting through pages of technical language, teams can quickly see what applies, what doesn't, and why, bringing clarity and confidence to compliance and decisions. Please join me in welcoming Jonathan Brunn to the stage for AI-Enriched EHS, leveraging regulatory AI to simplify EHS compliance.
All right. End of the day, almost, and they asked me to stretch out my presentation a little bit because someone's running late. So I can talk for a long time. So you tell me when you want me to stop. So let me try to get this to work. All right. So I'm Jonathan. Founded this company, Nimonik, about 17 years ago, 18 years ago. We do a birthday party for the company every year. It was somebody else's idea, but at the anniversary of the company every year, we do a birthday party. So we've survived 18 years, and that's my basic business mantra is survive. So I'll talk a bit about AI. We did a panel this morning. Maybe some of you saw it. Hot topic. A few people are talking about it these days, and happy to also do some Q&A or anything if we want to use up some time. All right, so I think I've got slides. I didn't have the courage, like Daniel, to do a live demo. We could do one, but I didn't bring the laptop. So we'll talk a bit about what we're doing at Nimonik, what we were doing traditionally, and kind of where we see the market going in the future. All right, so just quickly about us. I mentioned we started the company in 2008. It was started by an environmental consulting group where we had customers. I was working there at the time. We had customers who had operations across Canada, and great country, Canada, but we do have this tendency to make our lives really complicated by having different regulations in every single province. And so if you're a company that operates in multiple provinces, you're basically operating in different countries. I mean, it's as different between Ontario and Quebec as it is between Quebec and France. And so companies that have this challenge of managing regulations across the country, they came to us. We built a huge database of information, which environmental laws exist, what do you have to do for air emissions, for wastewater, et cetera. We wrote reams and reams and reams of information for our customers. It was very expensive. It took a lot of time. And then the government would go ahead and change the regulation or introduce a new regulation. So you have to rewrite all this content. And it was just not financially viable. So at that time, we spun it out, created this company in 2008. And we now service about 950 companies around the world. Headquartered in Montreal, we have people in Calgary, all over the country, US, China, and elsewhere. And we're across all sectors, from oil and gas, upstream, midstream, downstream, to manufacturing. So we've been playing with AI in various forms for, I'd say, about 7 or 8 years. Even before ChatGPT, we were working on tools to help identify the requirements within a law. And a lot of this was born out of the oil and gas industry here in Alberta. There's a regulation called the Onshore Pipeline Regulations. And within that regulation, if you operate a pipeline that goes across provincial boundaries or international boundaries, you have to demonstrate to the Canadian Energy Regulator that you have assessed all your requirements for environmental compliance. And so this is thousands and thousands and thousands of requirements across hundreds of documents, especially if you're like TC Energy of this world, where you're in many provinces and many states. So we started building out this tool, and very quickly the subject matter experts at the oil and gas midstream companies they still are, completely overwhelmed with information. So we started playing around with tools to build out some tools for them to figure out what's a genuine requirement within these laws. So we did this. We call it obligation identification. Basically, it's you have a document, we cut it up into all the provisions, and then which of those provisions or which of those clauses are requirements. And within a clause, you might have multiple requirements. We then started using AI to summarize the document. So most of you have seen this at this stage today. It's very common, but we did this a couple years ago. So basically, you want a summary of what's in this document. We can do that with AI. And then a chatbot, like you would find with a ChatGPT, except it's using up-to-date information, it cites sources, and it's been validated by environmental consultants and environmental experts. So a lot of these solutions I'm talking about, I would say, are taking an old workflow, which is documents cut up and then processed, and just applying a bit of AI on top of it. And what we're looking at now going forward, 2026 and beyond, is really thinking, okay, how would we re-architect this entire system given what large language models and AI are capable of doing? I think Daniel's demo earlier today kind of highlighted that you potentially need to flip a lot of what you're doing to really take advantage of the LLMs, and they continue to improve all the time. So this passive AI is the user needs to know what to ask and where to look within this information. Yes, we're summarizing laws, we're identifying requirements, but the user themselves need to already be quite educated and have a very good understanding of what they need to do. The AI is not fully taking a burden off of them. So what we're moving towards is what we would call proactive AI. And I spoke about it a bit this morning. It's kind of this idea of a homeostasis or homeostatic system. So a homeostatic system would be like me as a living creature. If I'm hungry, I eat. If I'm tired, I sleep. I adjust myself based on the environment and the cues that I'm getting in that environment. And so now with AI, you can start to move away from something that's sort of reactive to something that's more proactive, that anticipates problems, that raises risks as the operation operates and as things change. So you get a new environmental permit, you load it into the system, and it will pull up, hey, here are the requirements you need to pay attention to. Here's the risk that you need to take into consideration. New regulation comes out, or an amendment to a regulation comes out. Don't just tell the customer new regulations come out, but really personalize that experience to say, hey, this regulation came out because of your operations near Red Deer. You have a particular exposure to this. There's a possible financial penalty that could be $1 million, whatever it might be. And so that brings it right up to the top of the queue, because one of the biggest problems, as I mentioned, is people are just overwhelmed with information. So it's not about just simply summarizing the information. It's about raising the right information to the top of the queue and making sure it gets the attention it deserves. And as you're doing this, again, just off of Daniel's demo earlier, is we're always going to provide the end user with the why. Why are we raising this to the top of the queue? Why is this important for your organization? We want to educate and inform them and justify things and link back to source materials. And then obviously the logical next step here, you don't need to be Steve Jobs to figure this one out, is to tell them, hey, what do you got to do? What are the actions you should take, put in place to reduce your risk, to ensure you're staying in compliance going forward? And those actions, many of those actions can be generated with AI. So this is probably a little bit hard to read on the screen, especially for those of you in the back. But basically what it says is, there's an Alberta pipeline facility here, oil and gas, Conservation Act, article, I can't even read it, A. So, it says a carrier of oil and gas cannot discriminate in favor of a customer, which goes back to the days of Standard Oil. We could talk about anti-monopolistic behavior later. It's quite an interesting story. But here we, I digress. So we analyze it with applicability. So we've said, what we do is we put into the system, hey, I'm an oil and gas midstream operator. I operate in these jurisdictions. I have this type of pipeline. I'm moving gas, or I'm moving liquids. And we put in that, you can think of it as a prompt. You can have multiple prompts, so you can kind of layer it. So you might say, I want to have a list of documents that are about cybersecurity and data privacy, a list for environmental. So we can create layers, and then it says, is this provision applicable to me or not? And it says, in this case, it does say yes, applicable. It's in green. It's that green box you might be able to see. And it justifies it with, why is this applicable? And then below it, we create what's called an AI-Enriched clause. So the actual clause in the regulation is sort of the one sentence at the top of this screen, so it's quite brief. And often these clauses will refer to definitions, they'll refer to annexes, they'll potentially even refer to other documents. And so to try and put that together, like a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, is hard. It's a lot of work. And imagine doing it thousands and thousands of times. So what we do is with the AI, we're able to go grab all that contextual information and basically provide them a richer explanation of what is this clause about, what's it requiring you to do. And we'll talk about who does this apply to, and are there any exemptions? Does this clause, are certain companies or operations exempt from this? So just enriching the content and trying to make our customers' lives a little bit easier. And that's it. I actually had a pretty short presentation today, so I don't know, I can talk about something else if you want me to, but do we have any questions about AI? Do you want me to use up some time? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I attended your the workshop you did earlier
Mm-hmm.
about AI, and I was wondering. I actually wrote down the question. I don't have to think about it. I was wondering. You all talk a lot about ethics, but you didn't necessarily speak about like how AI is impacting people who like live near data centers. And so I was wondering if, since you have an AI company, if you could speak more about that. Because the presentation was like framed as being like about like the environmental impact of
Mm-hmm.
AI. So
Yeah.
using AI, taking up a lot of water. How would you, or like what are you all doing to offset?
What are we doing? Well, I haven't studied a lot the environmental impacts of data centers. I think but my very high level kind of take on this question, which is in the media a little bit of, environment, is, well, compared to what? It's never, is a data center good or bad? It's compared to what are your other options? So if, theoretically, if the data center that's running the AI is able to offset the work of 1,000 people, 10,000 people who have to eat and move and displace and have office buildings. And so you talk about these dark factories, for those of you who've heard about that term, it's like a factory that's 100% automated. And so they don't even need lights in the factory because it's all robots doing the work. So I haven't looked at any actual life cycle analysis of this kind of stuff, and the AI itself is evolving at such a pace that it's probably almost pointless to think about this now. But my take would be, my high-level gut feeling is the data centers, if you supply them with renewable energy, which there's no reason you can't do that if you're motivated. So if they're being supplied by renewable energy, they're located in a place that's not too crazy to cool, because your main thing is the cooling cost. So maybe don't put them, in the heart of Texas. But here, it's pretty cold, at least a good chunk of the winter. So we can have data centers up here, try and do it with renewable energy, and then what are you offsetting? If you're offsetting humans who are eating cows, who are living in buildings, it might be net very positive for the environment. As for the people who live near the data centers who are maybe disrupted by construction, noise, nuisance, I think we have that problem whenever we're building anything, is sometimes some people are affected, and we need to have laws and regulations and bylaws in place to ensure that it's done in an appropriate manner. But I'm not sure it's any different at data center versus like a new development or project or what have you. So that's at least my very high level take. Hopefully helpful. You want me, it's long enough? I talked long enough? Okay, all right. As long as it doesn't go full matrix, that's the real worry.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for stretching that out just to give us some more time for our speaker. She's almost here. But we have, and also thanks for that fun discussion on regulations and stuff around AI and things like that. That's a good discussion to have. For those of you online, sorry you couldn't hear that, but for those of you in the audience, if we want to take that further, take it to the networking lounge. We can discuss it further. Dan seems to be very knowledgeable and has lots of insight on that. So if you have any questions, we could go to him for that too. But yeah, I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker, Megan McAdam, Director of WIC. Megan co-founded WIC, a modern compliance-focused waste management platform, and led its development from concept to launch in under 12 months. She now oversees everything from product and customer success to software development and strategic partnerships. In this session, Megan will introduce WIC, a digital platform that automates traceability across products and waste streams by capturing and connecting real-time data from origin to final destination by replacing manual fragmented process with a single automated system. WIC ensures materials are correctly identified, handled, and routed. Join me in welcoming Megan to the stage for Traceability in Action with WIC, where products and waste find their right place.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for hanging in there till the rest of almost the end of the day. Appreciate it, you guys. Well, Jonathan, your presentation couldn't have been a better segue into what I'm going to talk about, because I'm really going to be starting to talk about operationalizing compliance. That's really what WIC does, and really truly in the waste and commodity space. So thank you for that segue, Jonathan, about compliance and staying on top of things. I'm going to really hone in on the waste space and what that looks like to truly operationalize the compliance side of things. So some of the problems that we're solving for when it comes to waste compliance, most everything is still done by paper. And by paper, I mean carbon copy paper. And I mean where it might be filled out, there might be some gaps, but I suspect about 25% of most waste manifests are incorrectly filled out or not filled out at all. And so, as you can imagine, from a compliance point of view, there's some gaps. There's some opportunities that need to be closed here. From an operations perspective, it's really important that they know what they're actually generating from a waste perspective, what it's classified as. Is it hazardous? Is it oxidizing? Because as it's shipped on a highway, as it's sent to a receiving facility, how is it going to be managed properly? And so this is one of the areas that we're really solving for here. With a basis in compliance, when you also have paper, it's very hard to get good data. And data is very important to start driving good decision making. So in addition to the data problem, there's a lot of data in silos, whether it be a crumpled up manifest in the man door of a truck versus Excel spreadsheets. But then, of course, there's the time when your boss is like, hey, for our corporate reporting, I need all of our waste data summarized in a spreadsheet for tomorrow. And you're scratching your brain thinking, how the heck am I going to put this together? Because it is in such different silos all over the place. So WIC was really founded to solve for this whole problem around waste compliance. We started in the energy business about 2 years ago. Jonathan, you also did a really great analogy about how compliance in each province is almost like a different country when you move province to province. Most oil and gas generators or industrial producers operate across all of the provinces, or at least all of the Western Canadian provinces. And so how do you make sure that the right document is being generated and the right type of compliance is being applied so that the receiver knows how to manage it and it's also safely transported on the highway? So in introducing WIC, we created this we come from the waste industry, and we're here to solve the problem around waste. We're waste experts using technology to help solve the problem, not the other way around. And it's truly what it is an ecosystem. In digitizing the documentation, you're truly connecting the generators of the waste to the transporters of the waste, as well as to the receivers of the waste. Typically, when it comes to paper, receivers of waste usually find out what's coming to their site when the trucks arrive. And they're usually like, great, what is it that we have? Can we actually receive it? Whereas now there's line of sight as to what's actually being shipped into your facility. Is it safe to actually receive? Do you have capacity to receive it? In digitizing a lot of the documentation, you're also creating good data. Good data equals good reporting. So suddenly it's all legible. You can move into a paperless type system, including in TDG. We do have our equivalency certificate in the transportation of dangerous goods. Suddenly you actually also have a centralized, accessible data platform where everything is all united in one area. So whether you're regulated under 2 regulations in Alberta, you can just spit out the right reports because we know based on your source facilities what types of reporting is required. So it's seamless right from the start all the way through to the end. In addition, it's all auditable. The whole entire process, who touches what, when, why changes were made, all of this is documented along the whole entire journey to make sure that it's all defensible should an audit come up. This is all to say that the platform's now working and we've proven it, and I'll walk you through some case studies as to how it's working in real time and some of the advantages of the system. So when we talk about who benefits from it and where it fits in, so it's really an operational tool. I'm talking users in the field who generate waste as a byproduct of almost every single industrial activity, and it's recurring. We need to make sure that we're arming operations with the tools they need to do their job. So from an environmental and regulatory compliance point of view, if you're using a software like Jonathan's, it's going to advise you that, hey, we're regulated under X, Y, and Z, and are you actually following it? But now we're taking it to that next level and operationalizing it. So from an operations perspective, they're able to generate the documentation within seconds. It's good data, you have confidence in what's being done because at the start, the environmental and regulatory compliance team has put in a lot of effort to make sure that everything is seamless so that when it moves to operations, it's truly a smoother workflow. You're saving massive amounts of time. If you can imagine how long it takes to fill out a paper manifest if you're doing a turnaround at a facility, we're talking hundreds of documents on a weekly basis. That's a very sore hand, whereas this, it can happen within seconds. And as I alluded to earlier, that leadership side of things, they need to know what the corporate reporting is. They need to be able to validate it, make sure it makes sense, and you have transparency in how you actually got it, and what are the assumptions around it. Well, when you use a platform like WIC, everything's already consolidated. And so you have a lot of confidence in the data, so there's a massive risk reduction. But now that you have access to real-time data, you can also start making better vendor management decisions. Who are the transporters that are being used? How frequently? What about the receivers of the waste? Do we have the right contracts in place to be able to support when we can actually see everything from a holistic perspective? So solving this has really started for us in the energy industry and moving into the institutional, commercial, industrial side. And we're in these spaces very much primarily because they're complex regulations. Waste is typically a byproduct of most activities, and it's not a core competency of a lot of the different organizations we're working with. So how can we arm them with the tools that they need to be able to execute and to stay compliant while doing so? Now let's talk about the proof in the pudding, because it's all nice and dandy to say that you can do all these things, but in the several years we've been operating, we've had a good fortune of turning it into reality. And so here's a case study that I wanted to share with you guys today. We worked with a Canadian major energy producer in Western Canada, and they were archiving an old aging system that created shipping documents that would become uncontrolled documents once printed. And so we replaced their system and onboarded this whole entire organization. So we're talking over a span of 6 months, onboarding over 700 active users, 25 operating areas, over 15,000 types of assets. I'm talking facilities, well sites, upstream, downstream, you name it. In addition, we were able to successfully get them going one region at a time. Since we've operationalized and started activating them, they've generated over 21,000 digital shipping documents. This is for all different types of waste streams and or commodities. This could all be TDG related as well. And we also oversee approximately 60,000 waste loads that are tracked annually to make sure that when that leader is called upon asking for that corporate reporting or, hey, I need MPRI reporting, we're able to pull this for them in a seamless manner. But I think the bottom line here that's really important is the cost savings. Yes, compliance is foundational, but when we actually start using technology to our advantage, you can actually have massive cost savings. This client in itself had about $350,000 in cost savings per year, and I'm just talking just operations. That is just operations job moving to a digital platform in time savings and turned over into a cost savings. So that's a pretty good one where we were able to get them going on the platform. They're continuing to use it till this day, and we're seeing a lot of, I assure you, it is spotting a lot of compliance issues that are being surfaced that otherwise probably wouldn't have been, but it's a great opportunity in terms of being able to better educate how things should be done and being able to support their operations. So wrapping up here, I know I am one presentation away from the end, so I will make this brief. So why WIC? WIC really just turns that traceability from a record-keeping, everything in arrears perspective, turning it into a real-time decision-making engine. So we want to make sure, and we help make sure, that every commodity and every waste stream ends up exactly where it should be. So a lot of the proof points that I've got here are actually real proof points in a lot of from the clients we've been onboarding over the last 2 years. So 80% reduction in time spent managing waste, and I mean like big high level here. Managing waste can be everything from the paper document reconciliation that doesn't occur anymore, to reporting, to making sure that operations questions are addressed, you name it, all of that has been reduced significantly. 64 days per year on time savings for clients on average. This one actually is related to a specific client who spends the majority of their time on reporting alone. And this we have calculated for the year, that's how much they are saving, which is incredible. One recent client, they had started saving 90 minutes per day in productivity gains for operations when they started using WIC because of just the actual transfer from a physical to a digital process. But most importantly, it's the visibility. Suddenly you have line of sight as to every single shipment that's moving on the road, as to what's being generated at which sites, and more importantly, you can start making better decisions based on the access to data you have. That's all I've got for you this afternoon. Thanks everyone very much for your time. If you have questions on WIC or want to chat, we have a booth inside, and we'll also be seeing you at the cocktail hour.
Thank you so much, Megan. 1 second, let me adjust this mic. Yeah, thanks, Megan, for that excellent presentation and for sharing such an impactful digital innovation in the waste sector. Like she said, if you'd like to chat more about WIC, learn more, they have a booth in the exhibitors lounge just over there, and they will be at the cocktail hour, so you can definitely network with them there. Now, but certainly not least, we have our final speaker of the day, Korcheska Badirova, CEO and co-founder of OzoneBio. OzoneBio is a Canadian green tech company producing bioadipic acid, a key ingredient in Nylon 66. Using sustainable feedstocks like wood waste, their oxygen-driven process dramatically cuts emissions while upcycling large volumes of biomass, creating a cleaner, low-carbon alternative to traditional chemical production. Today, Korcheska will explain why adipic acid is an overlooked but significant global emitter, how OzoneBio's process achieves up to 96% reduction in CO2e, and how this breakthrough positions Alberta as a leader in sustainable climate-positive materials. Please join me in welcoming our final speaker of the day, Korcheska Badirova, for her presentation From Wood Waste to Nylon 66.
Hello, everyone. I know everyone is super tired. I mean, it's pretty empty. I'm so sorry I couldn't make it earlier here. I think I would have more people to present to. So OzoneBio is a Canadian clean tech company, but not only Canadian. We're actually Calgary-based. We have a facility here in Calgary, and we're scaling up our production over here. So what we do, we upcycle wood waste and nutshells into the new product stream. Our first hero product, but not only product that we're making, is adipic acid. Adipic acid is a main building block of high-performance polymer Nylon 66 that you can find everywhere, from car parts to running shoes. It's a $30 billion market globally. Adipic acid also used in polyurethanes, PVC, pretty much in all the plastics around. And I'm pretty sure most of you guys wearing today Nylon 66 textile, which main part of it is adipic acid. So what's wrong with adipic acid and why we are targeting the production of adipic acid out of the wood waste? So per year, at least 60 million tons of greenhouse gases emitted into the atmosphere as a side product of the specific adipic acid production and Nylon 66 making. So what's happening is in the petroleum sector, they use nitric acid, and nitric acid is one of the main solvents to produce adipic acid. And then when it's mixed together in one reactor, leads to the nitrous oxide release. Nitrous oxide is one of the most dangerous greenhouse gases, 300 times more toxic than CO2. As a result, you have 147 liters of greenhouse gases emitted per kg of adipic acid production. So if you're wearing, let's say, Lululemon pants, Gore-Tex jacket, or Patagonia, some fleece, or some rain jacket, most probably the amount of Nylon 66 used in that material is enough to make us all die in this room. So that's the amount of the greenhouse gases emitted into the atmosphere every year. And right now, adipic acid only made a Nylon 66 out of petroleum. There are no bio-based analogs, and we're the only company in the world that's making it bio-based. What we're doing, we basically start with wood bark. I brought samples here. It's not that big room. You can come and check. So this is the wood bark that we start with. So everyone's seen, trees and the wood bark. So that's literally what we use as a starting material. And then we upcycle it using pyrolysis and green chemistry approach, emission-free, and we turn it into the adipic acid as a white powder, and then adipic acid after that is being polymerized to Nylon 66 pellets, which is the plastic pellets like this here. You can, whoever wants it can come and check. So that's what literally is happening. We take the wood bark and we convert it into the Nylon 66 pellets that further on can be spun into fiber. I have little fiber sample left with me because majority of the fiber samples, like thread samples that of Nylon 66 that were made, are sent to the brands, like I mentioned today, high-performance textile brands. So this is a fiber, basically. It's a shiny Nylon 66 fiber that we can also make from wood bark and nutshells, and we distribute it across the world to major brands that producing apparel for outdoors performance, so something that would be high performance, durable, and used for athletes and so on. Our product is fully bio-based and certified. It's 100% bio-based by independent party. That's here in this slide. You can see that it's white powder of adipic acid and Nylon 66 pellets on the same image right here. And like I said, we're the only company in the world producing it and scaling, and we're scaling it right here in Canada. We're at the 1 ton scale per year right now, building up our pilot facility here around, not far from downtown in Calgary. This is our team. We're constantly hiring people, and that would be it. I know you're all tired, want to run away, but that's it. Thank you. Good question. 1 ton per year, it would be, so for example, just a typical plant of nylon 6,6 production would be at scale 100,000 ton. So we're per 1 ton, and then like our pilot, so we pilot, like we build the pilot production here, now next step to scale to 50 ton per year. Definitely more expensive, but our TEA and the type of feedstock that we're using, you know, Canada is, not Alberta specifically, but Ontario is very rich in wood waste, and you can get it for free. So at scale of around 24,000 ton, we can be cost parity. Yes, that's about it, yes. Right now we're like at this, it's enough to supply 2 brands, I would say, collections of 2 brands that use high performance outwear, so for us. Exactly the same formula, is just fully bio-based and emission-free. So exact same performance as a petrochemical derived nylon 6,6 and adipic acid. It's just fully bio-based, allows you to save emission in 97%. So. Yeah, of course there are emissions in pyrolysis, but the cool thing about the pyrolysis system, if you're scaling it up and then you collect that gas, you can power your own facility with it. That's what's happening most of the time, right? You can collect that syngas and then again burn it and then power that facility. So that in LCA, it's not really, so we can do 2 things, and it's additional revenue for us. So you can sell the syngas, or you can use it to power your own facility. In both cases, that's a great thing for LCA. Oh, of course, 100%. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So carbon credits we get. So what's happening, we're using conventional pyrolysis process. We cook wood, and then we use bio-oil as a feedstock to our adipic acid. But the majority of companies, they stop at the stage of biochar and syngas. They cannot do anything further on. We're the only one actually managed to perform towards high performance materials. And we actually, I forgot to mention, so we also can make vanilla extract, and I have example here as well out of the wood waste. It's just a side product, nice bonus for us, it's not really target. So yes, we make biochar, syngas, and bio-oil as a conventional pyrolysis company, but then that bio-oil we can convert in vanilla extract, in some other food additives, and nylon 6,6. But from biochar and syngas we can get carbon credits. It's a typical business strategy for a lot of companies that raised, you know, money in the last 10, 20 years. And biochar right now, all of a sudden, hot topic, good for us. And syngas, well, I don't know why, but whatever. Everyone got a little bit more alive. Chemistry is more fun. Okay. Whoever wants to try our vanilla, I have it here. So. And get some samples and fiber, whatever. It's up to you. Thank you, guys.
That was awesome. I love seeing conversations continue like that. Thank you, Korcheska. That was awesome. And thanks for bringing some samples and stuff, too, to look at. I think that gives the audience and people online a better look at what your presentation was all about. So once again, if you'd like to chat with her a little further, continue those awesome conversations, you can do that during the cocktail hour. And this is the last session, so we'll close and you guys can go and continue those conversations. But before we wrap up, I would like to take a moment to extend a heartfelt thank you to all of our sponsors and funders who made Eco Impact and the innovation stage possible. Your support creates spaces like this where ideas can grow, innovators can shine, and important conversations can take shape. Thank you for investing in the future of Canada's environmental workforce and for helping us bring this energy, creativity, and community together. We truly couldn't do it without you. And finally, thank you to all of our presenters for an incredible first day of sessions. And thank you to all of you for your energy and engagement and curiosity throughout the day. We have even more exciting presentations and discussions lined up for tomorrow. As you can see here on the screen, we start at 8:30 a.m. and we go until 12:15. So we hope to see you back here bright and early. But for now, you're invited to relax, connect, and celebrate with a few environmental professionals at our cocktail hour. I also want to thank everyone who joined us and stayed with us online today. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.